sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Sunday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs Podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show. And you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. Let's give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble. And welcome back, guys. I hope you've been having a great weekend so far. I don't know about you, but it actually got a little bit warm here over the weekend. It's crazy. I just had turned the heat on a couple of days ago. And then yesterday it was 70 degrees. And today it's 73-ish. I think it's going to be 78 on Tuesday or something like that. So I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying a little bit of this warmth that has come through, at least for now. But welcome back, guys. We have so much to discuss today. Sunday's show was a little bit more lighthearted. I try not to cover too many heavy topics on Sunday because we are just getting started with the week. So let's go ahead really quick and let's go ahead and give a shout out to Sabby patrons, and then we'll shout out people in the chat and we'll get this thing going. Is that okay? Is that okay with you? All right. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you guys so much for your support. Really do appreciate you, but that is not the screen I wanted to share. What I tell you. This is what happens when you're live. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you, guys. If you're interested in being a patron, I have 5 categories here. Ultimate. There's Sabinators. There's also a group called Sabsters. I don't know if everybody's aware, but there is. That's right. And of course, there are Sabbies out there doing the damn thing. What's up? And don't forget about those members, ladies and gentlemen. They are here as well. You can see everyone's name here, and you can also see their name scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. Thank you guys so much for your support. Appreciate you, fam. And I do have to update this because I gave a shout out to these newbies last live stream. So I need to update that. I think we do have new ones that I will have for you on Tuesday. So yeah, I've been busy, guys. I'm sorry. It has been a busy week. Let's go ahead and shout out people in the chat. Fam, what is going on? Hello. Is this thing on? Yes, Jordan Smith. Shout out, says, hey, girl, this thing on. Shout out to Lauren, says, free Palestine. Greetings, Max, says, more than 13 million early votes cast in the U.S. so far. Yeah, I have noticed that a lot of people are voting early. I'm probably going to try to do it early, too, just to get it out of the way. We don't usually have what you call particularly long lines here in the Boston area compared to other places where I've lived on election day. But it's just one of those things. I think if I can just go ahead and just nip that in the bud, might as well go ahead and do it, right? Shout out to my comrade JB, says, good evening, all my beautiful people. Hello to Sabrina Salvati, first of her name and queen of the barbells, the unbreakable breaker of propaganda and mother of border collies. Forehead kisses to all. Thank you so much, JB. That's JB there holding down the fort. Shout out to CBC Voters, says, happy Sunday to JB and to Sabby. Greetings, Tim, though. Shame on Marc Lamont Hill. You cover the genocide for a year only to turn around and tell people to vote for the financier of said genocide. GTFOH, shame on him, F Kamala. Yeah, Mark, I don't know what's going on. And Mark is a Green Party voter, so I don't know what's going on with him. What's up? I know myself, said Dana Bash. IMO is this generation's Hans Frisch. I don't know. A Nazi propagandist reporter who was indicted at Nuremberg for war crimes. Interesting. Shout out to KWP. I don't know what you put there because StreamYard doesn't let me see these emojis on here. Sorry, but what's up? Greetings, Jenna says, if I put the casserole in the oven now, it will be ready by the time Sabby gets to the main story. Oh, man. Jenna got jokes. I try to save what I think is going to be the most popular story for the end when more people have been able to join. But that's funny. Greetings wearing ADOS. Mark has become delusional. Is a boy a girl, huh? Man, people are hating on Mark, huh? What's up, Pete? Abandoned Harris, Michigan, Wisconsin. Shout out to Ophelia, says JB, RBN needs a channel on B Sky, even if it's just to drop announcements. I am not familiar with that. What is B Sky? I'm not familiar. Yeah, if it's a new platform, you know, they just keep coming out with new platforms. I can't keep up. I can't. I barely use Instagram as it is. Shout out to Mark Pugsley, says Sabby, what's up? Greetings, Hannah sends a smile. Shout out to Thon, says, oh snap, hi Sabby and game. Hope everyone is having a wonderful evening. Me too. I hope so as well. Greetings, Shaz says, hi, Sabby. Hello, comrades. Shout out to Kinman, said, I adore Sabby. Oh, well, thank you. That's so sweet. Greetings, Nappy K. Nappy K. Hey, Sabrina. Hope your evening's going well thus far. It is. Thank you. Shout out to Brown Bunny, says, seated for Mother Salvati. She's going to drop it and pick up with chopsticks. Hey. Shout out to, of course, my comrade Eric T. Red, says, here we go, Sunday peeps. Greetings, Randy, says, good afternoon, Sabby family. Shout out to Deshaun, who is pretty shocked there. And I see a Cowboys picture there, Deshaun. Deshaun's a Cowboys fan. You know what? I'm not going to say, you know what? I'm going to let it go. You know why? Because my Patriots are doing terribly. I saw that game this morning, okay? At least part of that game this morning. Those London games really throw me off because I'm just like, oh, football, like this early in the morning. And every season they get me with the London games, but we lost. So I ain't gonna hate on you too much, okay? Shout out to Corey. Hello, Sabby crew. Happy Sunday. Greetings. Goddess says, who saw Donald Trump at McDonald's? I saw that video like right before I went live. I was like, what is happening? And shout out to Boaz, says, hi, everyone. Sabby, thank you for continuing on with steady live streams that are always so solid on research. Thank you. I try. I do try. And I don't get everything right all the time, but I try. I try. Oh, man. Oh, man. Oh, man. Yeah. The Donald Trump one, McDonald's video I just saw on Twitter. I was like, what is going on? What is happening here? Oh, boy. Okay. Anywho, let's go ahead and get into that thumbnail so you can see what we're going to discuss tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Again, hope you're having a great weekend. But we do have one of these stories is hilarious and I can't wait to get into it. So tonight, ladies and gentlemen, we are discussing what Candace Owens debates Marc Lamont Hill on Piers Morgan show. So there were two different topics that were discussed during this debate. We're going to talk about the Kamala Harris topic, which I thought was pretty interesting. And you can see the look on Candace's face and Marc Lamont Hill's face because I'm laughing because it's funny. It's funny. And there's also a rapper. I think his name is Lord Jamar. He is from the group called Brand Nubian. He was also a part of this debate too. It's hilarious. I'm telling you. Stay tuned for that one. We're also going to discuss, ladies and gentlemen, the media is freaking out of, oh, shoot. I should have said about. Oh, well, the media is freaking out about Dems 2024. Yes, all of them. It doesn't matter if it's CNN, if it's MSNBC, like they're freaking out as we get closer to this election. So you're going to hear from a couple of voters. In particular, you're going to hear from Arab American voters speaking to corporate media commentators about how they feel about this election. And it's just interesting when you look at the look on the commentators' faces. They are very, very not happy to hear this news that is coming that way. But also, you're going to hear a little bit here about Black and Latino voters as well going into the election for 2024. We're also going to discuss Kamala Harris snaps. Oh, this was Wisconsin. I don't know if people have seen this, but I saw this video was making the rounds. Kamala Harris has another I am speaking moment, which is probably not the time to have that rhetoric as we are getting closer to Election Day, particularly in another swing state. We're going to get into that. And This actually, in my opinion, is the big story. And that is the independent candidate that is gaining ground. His name is Dan Osborne. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about him, but I'll try to see if I can get him to come onto the show, because he has a chance here to really, really like make some waves. And right now, when we look at the polls, he has a chance to beat the incumbent for that Senate seat. So this is a big story that I think just hasn't received a lot of exposure. But we're going to touch on it tonight. You know how I feel. I'm all for like independent third party. I looked over his platform. I don't agree with every policy that he has on his platform, but quite a bit I do. And I think you might like this guy. I think you might like him. So we will get into all of those stories, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. All right. So first and foremost, if you have not had a chance to do so, ladies and gentlemen, go ahead and like, sub, and share if you haven't had a chance to do so. If you're new, of course, the sub would apply to you. To you. What you waiting for? Sub. Okay. So let's get into the first story, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really interested to get your opinion about this one. So as you know, we are about 2.5 weeks away from the presidential election for 2024. I have told you on this show a couple of times, we've been going through the numbers. And when you compare Kamala Harris's campaign to her predecessors, she is behind in key demographic groups, whether it's Black voters, Latino voters, the Arab American voters, Muslim voters as well. She's also behind with men, but you kind of like expect that given the outcome of the economy. I told you before, for a lot of male voters, they're saying the number one issue with them is the economy. And then if you look at the responses from female voters, it tends to be more geared towards the overturn of Roe v. Wade, at least those that vote Democrat. So we are seeing a little bit of a split there. But even when compared to Hillary Clinton, you can see her number right now is lower. So corporate media has finally got to the freak out mode. And we're going to start with this clip here from CNN with Dana Bash, where she is sounding the alarm about Kamala Harris having this trouble here with Black and Latino voters. Let's start with those groups first, and then we'll get to the Arab American and Muslim voters. Let's go ahead and dive right in.
There are a number of key groups in the Democratic coalition, I don't need to tell you, who are not supporting Kamala Harris in the same numbers that they did for Joe Biden, who obviously beat Donald Trump. Black voters, Latino voters, especially the men in those groups. Where do you...
Pause. We're just go ahead and pause right there, because I do want you to get a chance to look at the numbers before we, she continues on with this conversation. So you can see it for yourself, folks, here. You can see when it comes to Kamala Harris, comparing her to Joe Biden. And we showed the comparisons with Hillary Clinton and with Barack Obama as well. You can see that it's obvious that she is behind when it comes to Black voters at this point in time. She has plus 63. Biden had plus 75. When it comes to Black male voters in particular, she has plus 53. He has plus 60. When it comes to all Latino / Hispanic voters, Kamala Harris has plus 18. Joe Biden has plus 30, had plus 33. And when it comes to Latino / Hispanic male voters, she has plus 3 and Biden has plus 23. So one thing I do want to add here really quickly before we move on with the video, and I've told you guys this before, I would argue that if Joe Biden were still in this race at this point in time, I don't think that he would be able to obtain the numbers that he had in 2020 either. I do think that his numbers would be low. In fact, we saw signs of that before he dropped out of the race. We saw that he was starting to, decline with certain particular demographic groups. So I will say that, and a lot of that just has to do with the Biden-Harris administration, the economy, the foreign policy decisions. We have multiple conflicts happening right now, whether it's Gaza and Israel and Lebanon and Iran and, of course, Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of pieces to this. So I do want to put that out there because some people are like, Sabby, you're too hard on Kamala. I'm like, whatever. But people are like, well, you're not saying those things about Biden. And I was saying those things about Biden when he was still in the race. But the reality is, I think if he were still in this race today, I think his numbers would not hold up to the numbers that he had in 2020. So I do want to be clear about that. Let's go ahead and continue with the video.
I think you can make up for what we're seeing in the deficits in the polls.
Well, first of all, Dana, no election is exactly like the one previous, right? And so I'd say the biggest thing demographically happened in this election, which it's curious to me it doesn't get more attention than it does, is Donald Trump is facing historic gender gap with women. And if you look at young women, he may end up losing them by 40, 45 points. And those younger women turn out at higher rates than younger men. So we have some real strength on our side. Obviously, Kamala Harris has spoke to this, and I think this is the right approach. It's certainly been her approach, and her dictate to us is we're going to treat every cohort as if they are a swing voter universe. Whether those be black men, black women, Latino women. So the way I think about it, we're focused on 7 states. Do I think we can reach our numbers with the voter cohort you just mentioned, consistent with our strengths in other part of the electorate, to get a win number and get to 270 electoral votes? I do. Another thing I think particularly important with Latino voters is in Florida, Donald Trump's going to win Latino voters. Florida's a big state. So any national poll, and I generally think national polls are completely irrelevant as you look at the presidential race. But
let me pause here for a second and chime in about Latino voters, if I may. I don't know why the Democratic Party seems to assume this, that if you're Latino, then you're automatically going to support the Democratic Party. That's not necessarily the case. They tend to be split down the middle. Remember, there are some Latino Americans that are more conservative. If you look at, like he mentioned, Florida, for example, like Cuban Americans tend to be a little bit more conservative, but also other Latino Americans as well can tend to be a little bit more conservative. So this idea that just because a particular demographic is a group of color, that they would automatically support the Democratic Party. I don't understand why the Democratic Party hasn't figured this out. That's not necessarily the case. And then there are some, Latino American voters that when you look at some of the social issues, they are going to be more conservative, right? Like when it comes to abortion, they might be more conservative. They may be against any type of policy that they feel is leaning towards socialism, depending on which country they came from. These are important things I think that needs to be mentioned, but that just shows you something about the Democratic Party, that they think that because you are a group of color, that you're most likely going to support them. And that's not necessarily the case. In fact, if you look at some of the Latin American countries, if you look at some of the Latin American countries, particularly in like South America, for example, it's not uncommon for them to be more conservative when it comes to the social issues, but they may be a little bit more populist when it comes to those core economic issues. So I think, again, just a weird assumption by the Democratic Party.
We're focused on what is our Latino number in Arizona, in Nevada, with the Puerto Rican community throughout Pennsylvania. Philadelphia has the second highest population of Puerto Rican voters in the continental U.S. after New York. So in those states, but we're going to fight for every vote, whether that's, with our television ads, the candidate schedule, the media she's doing, but very importantly, the ground game. I think door knocking is going to be more important in this presidential race than anyone I can remember in recent memory. And I think we've got the organization to be out there because there's still voters at this late date, as much as you and I have focused on this race, who are just beginning to check in. And to have somebody from their neighborhood come and listen to them and have a conversation with them is incredibly important.
Interesting there. He did sound a little bit nervous. Could just be because he was on, corporate media. I don't know. But he did seem a little bit nervous there, a little bit unsure. I also get a little bit cringe when they say things like, there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in Philadelphia, like things like that. I'm just like, oh, so now you care about the Puerto Ricans in Philadelphia? Really interesting there. Now, that was one clip, but there's another one that I want to show you. And this one involves Arab American voters, where they have a little bit of a roundtable discussion here that they are not willing to support Kamala Harris. And this, by far, I think is going to be Kamala Harris's biggest hurdle, right? Like the Arab American voters, the Muslim voters, because that group, those two groups in particular, did help Joe Biden in states like Michigan, in states like Wisconsin, in states like Pennsylvania, you know, those blue wall states. And she is not polling well with those groups because of the genocide in Gaza, which I think we all pretty much predicted would happen. And she has not changed her rhetoric around that. So let's get into this roundtable here again. I think it's very telling. You can see how corporate media is starting to respond. They're like, we're getting closer to Election Day, and these things have not changed.
With just 18 days until Election Day and the conflict in the Middle East growing, the crisis in the region could determine how many Arab Americans will cast their ballot in the race for the White House. NBC's Yasmin Vasugian sat down with a group of Lebanese American voters to get their thoughts. She joins us this morning. Amiga, it's great seeing you. What did you learn from these voters?
This is my third time in Dearborn throughout this election season, throughout this year, Jose. And these group of voters, they feel forgotten. They feel as if the only time their vote matters is every 4 years when there isn't, in fact, an election. But in the interim period, they are not heard. And they feel as if the war, both in Gaza and now spilling out into Lebanon, is representative of the fact that their vote doesn't necessarily matter. Let's take a listen to more of what they had to say, Jose, and then we'll talk on the other side.
How are you feeling 2.5 weeks out from this election?
Betrayed, second-class citizens. We've been dehumanized. I don't even know if I can use second class. I feel like we're almost third or fourth class citizens now.
This is what we're trying to grapple with as a community of color, as a community that is civically engaged, and a community that's done everything right here in America, right? But we've been told that you don't matter, to the extent that we will continue to shed the blood of your people.
Let's pause there for just a second. He said we've done everything right. Now, I'm going back to after September 11, and I remember there was a lot of Islamophobia in this country, not just from everyday people, but also politicians. And I don't know how old everyone is that is watching, but if you remember during that time, there was a lot of Islamophobia. And I feel like it took years for this country to kind of move, past that. And some people still hold those beliefs. Some people still believe that all Muslim people or all Arab Americans are terrorists. And it's really disturbing because that's not the case. But the thing that really got me is when he said we feel dehumanized. And they should. And I was sitting here and I was thinking to myself, I think they are seeing, or maybe I hope that, they're seeing that this is how some of us that are Black Americans have been feeling for a long time. Unseen, dehumanized, ignored, not just by the Democratic Party, but by all of these political parties in particular. And it just goes to show you what I've said before over and over again. There is a certain dominant force and agenda in this country. And it's like, no matter how well you do, because he was like, we do everything we're supposed to do. No matter how well you do or how well you do it, you will always be seen as less than. And you can tell that from the rhetoric that you hear from Kamala, from Trump. You can tell it. Notice how both of them put Israel first. It's all about what Israel has the right to do. It's all about how can we help Israel? How can we help the Israelis? And the Palestinian people, the Lebanese people, they're always mentioned as an afterthought. It's like that little add-on at the end of a speech to say, oh yeah, and about those people too. And it's really sad. It's unnerving, But I will say this as well. You really cannot go to Arab Americans or Muslim Americans right now and tell them that they have to vote for Kamala Harris. You really can't. You can't go to these people who have lost family members in the Middle East, who continue to lose family members in the Middle East. I want to remind you that Gaza, they have cut off communications in northern Gaza again. So you know what's coming. You cannot expect these people to just swallow a genocide and say, okay, I'm going to go vote for you because they keep saying you're the lesser of two evils. You cannot. And I will tell you another thing. If you are trying to shame those people for not supporting someone who is a part of the current administration that is funding and aiding the genocide, if you're trying to shame those people into doing that, you're just going to push them completely away from the Democratic Party. And that's what I've heard from some of them that I've spoken to personally. They don't want anything to do with this party, regardless if leadership changes. They don't want anything to do with it in the future. But you can't shame these people. You really can't. So let's get to the Lebanese American part here.
As Arab Americans in this community, as Lebanese Americans now in this community, and you say politicians, which politicians do you blame?
They're the ones that are approving the weapons, the resources to bomb our people back home. Although I'm here, I'm an American, I work here, I've had my kids here, my roots are still in Lebanon. I feel like they're turning their back on us. That's my home, my homeland, and they're the ones that are bombing it. 200,000 voters, Jose, Arab American voters in the state of Michigan are at stake. And as we know, it is integral to the election to win that state for both of these candidates. And so they are really kind of vying for these votes. The three individuals that we heard from are likely voting for Jill Stein, a third-party candidate. And I pressed them saying, there are many people that will argue and say a vote for Jill Stein in the state of Michigan is in fact a vote for Donald Trump. Donald Trump has said repeatedly he will reinstate the Muslim ban. He has said he wants Netanyahu to, quote unquote, finish the job. They say a vote for Jill Stein for the third party is in fact a protest vote. And they say that because essentially they want to change the system, that they over and over have been forced to choose the lesser of two evils. And they're done doing that, especially because they feel as if their vote has been taken for granted. And they feel as if they do this protest vote third party, vote for Jill Stein instead of, for instance, for Kamala Harris, as historically the Arab American community has voted for the Democratic candidate. In fact, maybe that will force the system to further bolster a third party candidate. And that is what they, Jose, are voting for in light of being one issue voters. They're voting because of the ongoing war in the Middle East.
Yasmin Osugian, thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about this for just a second, because the reality is, I mean, and people, some people will stay home. It is what it is. But that talking point doesn't work with them. The talking point of supporting Jill Stein is a vote for Donald Trump. They don't want to hear that they're not thinking, they're just like, whatever. Because the thing is, like, again, you can't undo a genocide. You can't. So it's mind-blowing to me that people would still make this argument to Arab Americans and Muslim Americans, would make this argument to them that, well, you're not supporting Kamala, you're supporting Jill Stein. That's going to be a vote for Donald Trump. I don't know how many times I have to say this, but the majority of people that support third-party candidates would not support the Democrat or the Republican candidate. Some of them probably would, yes, but the majority would not. And so you going to a group of people that has lost family lines and is still continuing to lose their people to a genocidal apartheid state, and you're telling them, well, if you support Jill Stein, you're going to get Donald Trump. How can you say that to someone who is losing entire family lines? How can you say that? As if you totally just dismissed everything that they said to you during that conversation. That is the thing that drives me crazy. It drives me crazy. And at the end of the day, like I told you guys, when you go in the voting booth, I'm not going to be with you. You are not going to be with me. Okay? But the reality is, shaming these people for not supporting the current administration that is aiding and funding the genocide. That is a big no. You just cannot. I don't know how else to say this to people. I don't know how else to say it. And even here, Zen and Zipline, Republicans support Stein. Okay. We can argue about that however you want to, but Republicans support Kamala Harris. See, this is why this talking point doesn't even work. It's just all over the place. Kamala Harris is on the stage with Liz Cheney. Kamala Harris is getting endorsements from Dick Cheney. Republicans are supporting Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris wants a Republican in her cabinet. So you see, this is why you guys can't do this whole lesser to evil thing anymore. You can't say, oh, the Republicans are so much worse, because if they're so much worse, then why is your so-called lesser of two evil willing to work with so much worse? The Democratic Party has to have some like deep reflections to do about where they want to go and what they want to do, because even in this clip here, you're going to see it, a big stern warning to Abby Phillips at CNN about what is happening with Arab American voters. And people need to hear this because they don't care. And I've said it before because I've interviewed a number on the show. At this point, there is a certain segment of the Arab American and Muslim American population that does not care if Donald Trump wins at this point. Listen to this.
There is a segment of the Democratic coalition that wants to see actually a change in the rhetoric. They want to see her move in a particular direction. Has she done enough?
I don't think so. And I've been talking to people in the business sector in the Arab American community, and I was really surprised this week to get an earful to hear them say that they would much rather either vote a third party, not vote at all, or vote for Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, it's not obviously a significant sample size, but I cannot find one Arab American within my social circle in business or personally who have said that they will vote for Kamala Harris. When you look at the polling, it seems sort of neck and neck. What they are saying, and this is not a Donald Trump campaign line, that Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, who's a Lebanese businessman, has been successful in kind of converting and talking to people to explain why Trump would be better. Even with a Muslim ban, even with everything else that has happened, they feel they do not have any political clout. They don't have any political operation. The only political power they have is their vote, even if it means the rise of Donald Trump.
So everybody hear what she just said there. I think that's very important. She said she can't find one Arab American that is willing to support Kamala Harris. I mean, when you have a group of people that have been screaming at the top of their lungs since October 7th, they've been screaming and saying, stop giving the arms to Israel, ceasefire now. And then you expect these people to just support the administration that is killing their people. What the hell is wrong with you? There is something seriously wrong with you. Seriously wrong. I mean, at this point, what you should be asking yourself is, are they trying to lose? Because that's almost what it feels like. It almost feels like Kamala Harris is trying to lose. We can have discussions about that at some point as well. Let me let her finish here.
Extraordinary. That's extraordinary. I mean, and that part, I mean, we were hearing about the inroads that Tiffany Trump's husband was making in the spring when the uncommitted, uninstructed movement in a couple of states in Wisconsin and Michigan were such a big deal. I mean, 48,000 votes for uninstructed in Wisconsin. That's more than twice Joe Biden's margin in 2020. In Michigan, 101,000 uncommitted votes. That's just shy of what Joe Biden won that state by. I mean, this is important and it could be decisive.
And there's 200,000 Muslims in Georgia that no one talks about, too. And in the CARE poll, which came out several months ago, Kamala Harris was in third place among Muslims in several of those states behind both Donald Trump and Jill Stein. So there is this position that she's in. But she also said...
Let me reframe this the way that, because I don't like the way he framed that. When he says Kamala Harris was in third place, let me reframe that and say Jill Stein is in first place. Lead with the, listen, let's switch it around, because you know why I want to frame it that way? Because when it comes to those swing states and it comes to the Muslim vote and the Arab American vote, what that shows you is that Kamala Harris is the spoiler. Oh, what? What is that you say, Sabby? Kamala Harris is the spoiler? Oh, hell no. Yes. When you look at the numbers in the swing states with those particular demographics, Kamala Harris is the spoiler, not Jill Stein. If Jill Stein has 40% of the Muslim vote in Michigan and Kamala Harris, I think she's at 12%, 12 or 13, 12 or 13. And I think Trump is ahead of Kamala, even in Michigan, if I remember correctly. And she has 40% of the Muslim vote in Michigan. That means that Kamala Harris is the spoiler, fam. I don't know how else to frame it. We looking at numbers here. So the same way the Democratic Party and the Republican Party, they want to look at numbers, well, more so the Democrats, because they're the ones kicking them off the ballot. The same way the Democratic Party wants to look at the numbers and say, oh, we go by the Electoral College and you can't win Electoral College. I want to look at numbers too. And I want to look at these numbers and look at the numbers of support from Muslim voters to show you that at this point in time, Kamala Harris is the spoiler. I don't know what else to tell you.
By the way, in clips, that they shouldn't go to Rafah. And she said that she would put something on the table against Bibi Netanyahu's government if they did go into Rafah. And now she's taking a big credit that they killed the terrorists in Rafah. It is a little bit of a flip-flop moment for her in a very fast time, considering how frequently she flip-flops.
We're talking about also what Joe Biden's position was. He was the one who created that red line about Rafah, which Israel completely ignored.
Exactly. They completely ignored it. So it's one thing to say that you should not do something, but I'm looking at your actions. So if I tell you, not to eat any more pizza, but I'm constantly feeding you pizza, am I really telling you not to eat any more pizza? So if you tell them, no, you should not go into Rafah, but you keep giving them the weapons, oh, you should try to do the best that you can to make sure that you don't kill any more civilians. Oh, by the way, stop starving those people in Gaza. By the way, you got to let some food come in or whatever. Stop doing that. You have to change the way that you're doing your military operation, etc. But I keep giving you the weapons and keep giving you the aid, and you come to Congress and I give you a pat on your back and people are standing up and clapping for you. Am I really telling you not to kill those people? Everything that Israel is doing right now, you have to be 100% to understand that this is what the U.S. government wants them to do. I had to go back and show you Biden's old website to show you what he had said about Palestinians when he was running in 2020. Israel is not doing anything the U.S. government doesn't want them to do. There it is. There it is. All right, guys, let's go to some of the comments here. Yeah. Thank you for the super sticker, Kevin Madison. Thank you, Danny. Sabs, I saw Jill never actually say that Israel shouldn't exist, just that we treat the Palestinians better. Does that make her a liberal Zionist? Again, I don't know how many times I got to answer this question, but I don't think Jill Stein is a Zionist. I mean, I've had this conversation with her on the show multiple times. But if you wonder about how she feels about the presence of Israel, I could have sworn in that speech that she gave with Worker Strike Back, I'll go back and check, but I could have sworn at that Green Party Worker Strike Back event, I thought she did say that it is an illegal state, but I'll go back and check. Deneen says +3 with Latino men, yet they're pounding all over black men. Yeah. What's up with that, Obama? What is up with that? Thank you again, Donnie. I think I said Danny, Donnie. Also, my ballot in my hand right now. What do? I think you need to vote with your conscience, Donnie. Vote with your conscience. That's what I tell people. And thank you for this one. I'm finishing research, so I watch L8R. Much love. Oh, watch later. Thank you. Dreamwalker, I love this new setup. Thank you. I'm glad you guys like it. I wanted to do something different. And thank you, Deneen. A Cheney endorsement is not a flex. No, it's not. Like, stop telling me, you guys, the Democrats are really talking out of both sides of their mouth right now, because like, you're telling people that the Republicans are incredibly bad, but you're also bragging about the fact that Kamala is working with Republicans. So you all over the place. Okay. Stop. Juanita, Kamala, Black men in Detroit and Arab community. And you got the graph there, declining with Black men in Detroit and Arab community. Yeah. Thank you, Janice. Per exit polls in 2016, plurality, Stein voters would not vote if she wasn't in. The few that might have gone main party, roughly even split Dem/Republican. Yeah. Corporate media doesn't like to tell you about that. Thank you, Jesse Smith. Please talk with John Deaton. He crushed Liz Warren at debate. I still have to go back and watch that, but Elizabeth Warren is going to win Massachusetts. I live here. It's a blue state. There are some red pockets, but it's overwhelmingly blue. She'll win again. And thank you, Janice. Dem to represent cross-party voters outnumbered. Dem to Republican cross-party voters outnumbered Stein votes 5-1. Dems need to shut the fuck up and leave third-party voters alone. The entitlement of them is insane. Yeah, and honestly, like, your candidate should be strong enough so that you don't have to look back and blame a third party or independent candidate. Let's remember, there's also the Libertarian Party, and I don't see Republicans blaming Libertarian candidates for the reason why they didn't win. So just keep that in mind. Gary Johnson, by the way, Gary Johnson in 2016, the most successful Libertarian presidential candidate to date. The amount of votes that Gary Johnson received is quite astounding, considering he was a third party candidate. And it's just, this is what I'm saying. Like, a lot of people point to Jill Stein, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, nobody's going to say anything about the Libertarian candidates when the Republicans lose. Granted, Trump won in 2016, but still, there was a Libertarian candidate in 2020. Are the Republicans blaming Joe Jorgensen? Just something I've been noticing. Tabula Rosa says you're on to something. It's something I've been paying attention to. Why is that? Why is it the Republican Party doesn't blame the Libertarian Party when they lose? All right. Boom. Let's go ahead and get to the next story, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do the damn thing. Oh, did I not add this one? Oh, I missed one. I'm sorry. Eric, you'll have to fix this for the clip because I did mix one. Here's another one. Another show of hands for Arab American voters if they support Kamala. Watch this.
Who's voting for Kamala Harris here? Absolutely no.
No. Not possible.
There's nothing she can do or say for us to change our mind.
So there you go. I might have already had that. Eric, you'll know when you do the clips. But anyway, I had that as an extra video there. And now we got some good news. You guys ready for a good news story? Are you ready for a good news story, guys? Yeah. All right. Go ahead and smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. It's time to get into that good news. It's time to get into some good news. Now, I'm going to start out by saying this. I don't agree with every policy that this candidate has on their platform, but I do agree with quite a bit of it. And a lot of people don't know about this guy. Dan Osborne, he's an independent candidate that is running for Senate for the state of Nebraska. Now, what is interesting about Dan Osborne is that, number one, you guys know Nebraska is a red state with the exception of that one blue district. But Dan Osborne is not just an independent candidate. He's also a union dude. That's right. He's a straight up union bro. And it is very close between him and the Republican incumbent in Nebraska. And he's an independent. Let's get into this story, guys. We need some good news. I like the sign of this.
When something was broken at the factory, nobody else could fix it, Dan Osborne is who we call. The CEO took a $2 million bonus and then tried to cut our pay. People have given their lives to this company. Dan stood up, saved my job, saved our jobs. He took on the big corporations for people like us. He's a heck of a mechanic, but an even better guy.
I'm Dan Osborne, and I approve this message. Because if you want to fix Washington, send in a mechanic.
That was a new ad from independent candidate for the U.S. Senate in the state of Nebraska, Dan Osborne. That race in deep red territory appears to be no longer a safe bet for two-term incumbent Republican Senator Deb Fischer, with the Cook Political Report recently shifting the race from solid to likely Republican. Senate Republicans are now being forced to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that race. Osborne is a union industrial mechanic who led a strike at the Kellogg's cereal plant in Omaha back in 2021, and a victory by the 49-year-old Navy veteran would throw a wrench into the GOP's plans to take control of the Senate next year. And Dan Osborne joins us now. Dan, thanks so much for being with us this morning. So tell us a little bit about why you think your candidacy, so unlikely to start, is beginning to really resonate.
Well, thanks for having me on. You know, I did serve in the United States Navy. I served in the Nebraska Army National Guard. I've always felt compelled to service. And I did, I ran that strike at Kellogg's. 500 people took my friends and their family out into the great unknown, not knowing if we're going to have a job at the end of it. But we certainly felt we were on the right side of history.
Let's pause here and let's go ahead and interject. So here is a candidate that is not your usual Harvard law graduate, not a lawyer, wasn't a judge, doesn't have a father or some other family member that was a politician, just a regular dude, a mechanic, someone who led the Kellogg strike in Nebraska. Now, when the Kellogg workers went on strike in Michigan, my comrade Rome from RBN, he interviewed them on the ground. He went to the strike lines, and I believe he brought Trevor, who was the leader of that one in Michigan. He brought him on to the show later on as well. And I got to tell you, this is what Kshama Sawant talks about. Kshama Sawant, former city councilor of Seattle, started workers' strike back. This is what she did. You start on the ground first and you build on the ground with a workers' movement. And then if you want to run for office, you run for office. And I would argue that's probably the reason why the race is so close between himself and the Republican incumbent. Because the people looking at Dan, they're like, he was the one who fought with us. He was on the ground with us. When we were going on strike, he was leading the strike. He was fighting for the workers because he is one of us. And this is incredibly important. This is why I keep telling people, you need to get rid of all the bougie, Ivy League graduate politicians. We got to be done with that. These people have no connection to the everyday working class people. And I've said this over and over again. They don't. The only time they know these people is when they need to get their car fixed or they're going through the drive-thru. So Dan he's one of them. One of them. Now, again, I don't agree with everything on his platform, and we're going to get to that. But the fact that the race is as close as it is and he's an independent, what does that tell you? It tells you that when you build on the ground with the people, whether you're independent or third party, you can make it happen. Let's continue. I hope this story inspires people for real.
And now I'm running as a independent for United States Senate. And I'm an independent because I am frustrated with both sides catering to their extremes. We've seen just recently a farm bill, not getting done. We're seeing a border bill not getting done. And I think Robin Williams said it best when he said our elected officials should be wearing NASCAR-style jackets with patches of their sponsors so we know how they're going to vote. And certainly Senator Fischer, my opponent, is no different. She's got a lot of patches on her jacket, and if you look at her voting record, you can, it's right down the line.
So Dan,
if you're watching this and you like what you're seeing, if you like what we're doing here in Nebraska, go to osborneforsenate.com. And my average donation is $35. And we've raised over $4 million, and we haven't taken a dime of corporate money because we're being different.
Pause. Hasn't taken any corporate money. A candidate who's running as an independent hasn't taken any corporate money is close in the polls with the incumbent Republican. So, and this is the thing I think about like Bernie Sanders and members of the squad that pissed me off. Because of the popularity that they have, they could have left the Democratic Party any day now and just started a third party movement or ran third party or independent, and they would still win because they're already popular now. Dan isn't even probably not known to a lot of people outside of Nebraska. But you mean to tell me people who had that popularity, especially someone like AOC has millions of followers, if she were to say, I'm leaving the Democratic Party, I'm doing a third party thing or independent thing, and here's the reason why, do you think people wouldn't follow her? They would. And that's how you know it's all about their political career.
I don't want to be beholden to a corporation. I want to be beholden to the people in Nebraska. That's it.
No patches on your jacket. So, Dan, you have said you will not be a member of either party in the U.S. Senate, but would you caucus with either Democrats or Republicans?
Yeah, that's a good question, and thanks for asking that. George Norris was the last independent senator from Nebraska. He helped create the nonpartisan unicameral that we enjoy in Nebraska today, and he did not caucus with anybody his last term. So there's some precedent set. I don't think the two-party system's working for me or my family or my friends or their family, and I certainly plan to not caucus with either party.
Dan, everywhere
and I hope if he does win, I hope he keeps it that way, because what's the point of being independent if you're going to caucus with one of the other parties just automatically, right? So Bernie Sanders does that. There is a senator from Maine, I think that's Ainsley King. I believe he does this as well, like just caucus with one of the other parties. I mean, to me, then you're not really being independent. So if he does win, I hope he keeps that mindset. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. Right now, the Republicans have the lead in the Senate. They have 50 seats. I believe there's 5 seats that are left open. Last time it was 6. I believe there's only 5 now that are left to be determined. And if all of those, let's say 4 of those seats go to the Democratic Party, and let's say that Dan wins this independent seat, both parties would have to go to him to get him to say, hey, Dan, will you sign on and pass this for me? Democrats would have to do that. Republicans would have to say, hey, Dan, will you sign on and pass this for me? And if he doesn't want to agree with either one, he can do that. That's leverage. That's something that Bernie isn't really using. Let's go on a little bit more.
I hear people complaining, most people complaining about the two parties, say they don't represent them. And yet anytime anybody talks about running as an independent, they're told by all the political powers that be, well, that's a great idea, Sonny, but you're never going to get anywhere with that. It's impossible to do. I'm sure
you do that too, Joe. Joe said, people tell independent candidates that it's impossible, you can't do it. You're those people. You're the one telling people that.
You heard those complaints. Tell me, why has it worked for you? And why could it work for other people out there that are watching right now who are sick and tired of this two-party monopoly, this duopoly that, again, rewards extremism?
Yeah, I do feel like we're in a two-party doom loop right now. And imagine, if you will, for a second, the ramifications on American politics if Nebraska elects an independent mechanic to the United States Senate. The ramifications could be amazing. It would tell people that, first of all, you don't have to be a cryptocurrency billionaire to run for office. So teachers and nurses and plumbers and carpenters, people who stare at a computer screen for a living, farmers, I don't want to leave anybody out, but they could also realize that they could run for higher office the way the framers of the Constitution intended it, right? You come from your farms, come from your factories, do a term or two, and then go back. That's the way it was designed, and that's the way I think. And that's one of the main reasons I'm doing this, is to show it can be done, and also be beholden only to the people that elect me.
Okay, so I want to chime in here because I want to prove a point about something. Justice Democrats could have done this. And instead of being Justice Democrats, maybe the party or the organization could have been Justice People or Justice for All. I don't know. Although Cornel West now has a Justice for All party. So anyway, it could have been named something else, right? And instead of putting these progressive candidates in the Democratic Party, what they could have done is all of those people could have ran as independent or third party candidates. And in fact, it probably would have been better if Justice Democrats named something else, would have formed into a third party. Because like I said, for the people who say there's no way they would stand a chance running as an independent or third party against, you know, the Democrats or the Republicans, et cetera, Dan is proving that's not the case. So do you see why this story is incredibly important? Because you can do it. You really can. And then think about that. What could have been if they would have formed Justice Democrats into like Justice for Everybody, third party or something like that? And they had those candidates as third party candidates and they got in. Remember, Justice Democrats received a lot of money. They received millions of dollars. So don't pretend like they didn't have any money. And you had that and you would have built that party up by now. That party probably would have been on fire. That party by now probably would have been unstoppable. And that's what I'm saying. And this is why I go back to the situation that I said before about Bernie Sanders choosing not to leave the Democratic Party after 2016, after they cheated him. If he would have done that and started a third party movement, imagine where that would be today, especially considering the fact that he was already a popular person. It's not like nobody knew who Bernie Sanders was, but I want to show you just how close this is, because I was like, say what? We have got to pay attention to these Senate races. Okay. I know I've been talking a lot about the presidency, but we are going to switch our focus within the next couple of days to focus on what's happening in these Senate races, because let's be real. They pass legislation, right? They're the ones that decide whether or not legislation is going to pass. Even if it passes the House, doesn't mean it's going to pass the Senate. And if it doesn't pass the Senate, then it doesn't make its way to the president's desk. So I think it's important that we have a little civics lesson here and we focus our attention a little bit on the Senate as well. So if we go to Nebraska, which is where Dan's race is located, you can see here, this is how close this race is. This is insane. Who's ahead in Nebraska Senate general election? And Fisher is the incumbent with 44.1%. And Dan Osborne has 43.4%. That's how close this race is, ladies and gentlemen. And that is as of October 18th, which is just 2 days ago. So this is what I was telling people, like, it can be done, you know? Now, do I agree with everything that is on Dan's platform? No, I don't, but let's go through it. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Nothing to it but to do it. So here's his platform. Cut taxes for small businesses and the middle class. Yeah, I can get behind that. A secure border for a secure country. This one we're going to look at a little bit. Legal immigration helped build this country and is critical to Nebraska's economy. Illegal immigration creates a pool of cheap labor with no rights and is detrimental to every American worker. As a senator, I won't just talk about securing the border. As independent, I'll be uniquely positioned to bring together a majority to get it done. So I think a lot of people have been talking about the border, and they do. It seems like on both sides, Democrat and Republican, do want a secure border. Here's another one: protecting Social Security for every American citizen. I can get behind that. I told you guys before, I don't know if I will even receive Social Security by the time I'm old enough to get. I don't even know. We don't know what's going to happen. But protecting Social Security, I can get behind that. Let's go on. And you guys can let me know how you feel about this as well. Standing up for law enforcement and protecting public safety. Nope, that's where you lose me, Dan. You guys know I'm not down with the po. And he goes into a little bit of detail here, where he says, as a veteran, I know that foremost responsibility of every elected official is the safety and security of our communities. We owe tremendous debt to all of you who have given ultimate sacrifice. He says he'll make sure Nebraska law enforcement and first responders always have the resources they need. And you got to be careful with that, because having the resources that they need can also, transfer into another cop city. So you have to be careful with that. I'm not pro popo. You guys know that. This one is big. Yes. Guarantee a right to repair for farm equipment, cars, and electronics. 100% yes. Without a right to repair their own equipment, farmers and ranchers effectively locked into costly lifetime contracts with manufacturers. And he brings up the example about the John Deere agreement. And I do want to say to that point here, absolutely. We passed right to repair here in Massachusetts. Yes, it does make a difference. The contracts are ridiculous. They are costly. And I think every state should have that right to repair law. I think that helps small businesses. So that's another one. Yes, right to repair is huge. I agree with that one. Let's go on. Support our veterans. Fully fund the VA to clear out its backlog and ensure claims are processed in a timely manner. I don't even think the problem is that the VA doesn't have the funding. I think the VA just drags their feet. I mean, my dad's been through the VA. I've talked about this before, but he wants to support the veterans with comprehensive job placement and job training. Okay. No more soldiers on food stamps. This is a big, so raise servicemen pay. A lot of people don't realize this, and I got to point this out. People assume sometimes, like, just because you're in the military, that you're not living in poverty. There have been a number of families. I remember when I was growing up, a number of military families that were on food stamps. And when I tell this to people, they seem to be somewhat surprised. It depends. Like, if you are a lower rank and let's say you have 4 kids or whatever, I mean, especially like if you're in the Army, you're not making a lot of money. So yeah, you may have housing on base, but you're not making much, and you have kids you have to take care of. So yeah, that's not an uncommon thing for servicemen to be on food stamps. I don't think anyone in this country should have to be on food stamps. If everybody was paid a living wage and we took care of people in this country the way that we're supposed to, we wouldn't have to worry about this. So I can understand where he's coming from with that. However, I hope that he doesn't think that those programs should be removed. And that is a question I would ask him about that. Level the playing field for family farms and ranches. And he's talking about comparing that to, again, adding in our right to repair, which again is huge. And he's talking about the comparison between those family farms and, of course, like those large industries. In profiteering off senior healthcare. The entry of private equity into our healthcare system has been, for the most part, a disaster, and seniors are paying the price. Okay, and I get where he's coming from with this, but I would go a step further, and I would say you should approve of universal healthcare. Not just about seniors. Everybody needs healthcare in this country. So I would push him to take that a step further. And another one here, strong public schools. Legalize cannabis. I can get behind that. And I don't even smoke, but I can get behind that. Of course, we passed it here in Massachusetts. End wasteful government handouts to the pharma industry. So that's when he brings up the pandemic. I think a lot of you that were very critical of the pandemic, you can probably get behind this one. Stop handing huge subsidies to super profitable pharmaceutical companies. Lower taxes on overtime wages. I can get behind that. I can get behind any type of lower tax. Lower all the taxes. Protect the middle class jobs and wages. I would frame that differently. I would say instead of middle class jobs, because again, middle class is a very small segment of the population today. Most people are not middle class. So I would just change that to protect jobs and wages for all, right? Reform railroad safety. So this makes sense. He's a union guy. So he's obviously going to support what the railroad workers have been fighting for. And I've interviewed railroad workers on the show about that. Keep government out of our private lives. Now let's see where he goes with this. He says that he supports the Second Amendment. And he goes on to say, is this abortion? I do not support extreme national measures to ban abortion. So this is another one in case some of you were wondering. He doesn't support that. He said he respects the moral convictions of all Nebraskans, but he believes in limited government. And I do not believe the federal government is capable of resolving this issue. Under extreme federal bans, abortions will still happen. We need to focus on the root cause of reducing unwanted pregnancies. This is interesting. I oppose discrimination for any reason and thinks people's private lives are no business but their own. This is interesting, you guys. Interesting. And the last one here, pass congressional term limits. And I think you all know I can get behind term limits. I can get behind term limits. So some of those propositions there, I do agree with him about. And then some of them I obviously do not agree. But let's see where this race goes. And we'll keep an eye on it. Imagine if he wins. All right. Let's go ahead to the comments, ladies and gentlemen. If you haven't had a chance to do so, folks, smash that like button. Smash. If you're new, like, sub, and share. All right. Let's go ahead and go to the comments. Thank you, Courtney. Hey, Sabs. Hey, everyone. Sabby, did you see Barack get booed this weekend in Michigan? I did. And I'm not surprised. I'm telling you, the Obama effect is fading. It really is. Thank you, the Vulture Vanity Show. Obama wouldn't meet with Latino men because he was the deporter in chief. Yep. That's a part that Obama and Biden don't like to talk about. Yeah, buddy. Thank you, Sugar Free Mars. I think it's time to acknowledge the Democrat/Republican for what they are, sociopaths. The history of this nation has been supported and upheld by the sociopathic personality and called democracy. That's a good point. Thank you, Michael Kavlin. And shout out to Michael for becoming a Sabby member. Give Michael a big whoop whoop. Yeah. What's up, Jesse? The legal marijuana now party of Nebraska supports Republican Deb Fischer over Osborne. The third party people in the know are voting Fischer or NOTA. Oh, okay. I got to try to get him on the show now, Jesse. I have to try to interview him, find out what's going on with that. Thank you for letting me know. Thank you, Sparky. Israel killed far more Americans than Iran. Remember the USS Liberty. Thank you, Brad. What could have been unburdened by the duopoly? We are unburdened by what it could be. Thank you, Sammy. Danish government will ban universities to teach in RUCN. I can't see. I think that's an emoji again. Okay. Danish government will ban universities to teach in schools. I can't see what the emoji says. I'm so sorry. Oh, I see it here. Okay. Oh, Danish government will ban universities to teach in Russia and China. Interesting. I didn't know about that. Thank you, Wanker Tanker. Borders wind up with lower wages on both sides. Thank you, Yin Yang. We Sucklians do not go out of our way to fight against third parties. That is what makes them the lesser evil compared to dirtbag crats. I don't believe in lesser evil. I think evil is evil. Thank you, Cloudness. When I was 11, I turned 13 because I don't fuck with 12. Thank you, Cloudness. Thank you, Name It. After Gaza, I'm done voting and don't care about America anymore. Yeah, I've heard that from people too. And I am not surprised. Not surprised. Totally hear yous. And we're going to move on to our next story here. Kamala Harris has been making the rounds in the Midwest. Recently, she was in Wisconsin as well as Detroit, Michigan. And I want to start off with some rhetoric that she had about the war in Israel and Gaza and also Lebanon. And we're adding in Iran here as well, the conflict that is happening in the Middle East, the genocide that is happening in the Middle East, because I want to show you how Kamala Harris contradicts herself in one weekend. One weekend. We're going to start with this clip here. Thank you to James Zogby for this. This is Kamala Harris expressing some compassion. Some compassion that she has for the Palestinian people. Listen to this.
So as I was saying, our Arab American community has deep and proud roots in the Detroit metro area, and I am very proud to have the support of Arab American leaders like Wayne County Deputy Executive Assad Turfi. And listen, I know this year has been very difficult, given the scale of death and destruction in Gaza, and given the civilian casualties and displacement in Lebanon. It is devastating, and now Sinwar's death can and must be a turning point. Everyone must seize this opportunity to finally end the war in Gaza, bring the hostages home, and end the suffering once and for all. And I continue to believe diplomacy is the answer to bringing lasting stability across the Israel-Lebanon border. And as Vice President, and with your help as President, I will do everything in my power to achieve these goals and work toward a future.
Okie dokie. So that was Kamala Harris there in Michigan over the weekend. She's been hitting up again those Midwestern states there that she needs to win, showing some compassion there for the Palestinian people. But we've seen this before. Number one, I will say that if she thinks that because Sinwar is now dead, that will end the conflict that is happening in the Middle East, then she is sadly mistaken. She has to be either delusional or just lying on purpose. I don't know. You guys pick which one you think that it could be, because the reality is killing those leaders, you basically have now made those leaders a martyr. And you have now, with everything that has happened to the people in the Middle East, whether it's through Hamas or another type of resistance, I could never see those people deciding, let's just lay over and let's just not resist anymore. In fact, I would argue you have probably now created a new generation of resistance, and rightfully so, because how dare you starve the people, occupy the people, oppress the people, kidnap the people, kidnap their children, burn their children, put them into prisons in Israeli prisons and torture their children. How dare you treat these people like they are nothing but animals? And if you think that because you killed one of the leaders that will stop any type of resistance, then you have not been paying attention to history, because history would tell us something different. Nevertheless, she says she was compassionate there. No? Compassion? I feel the compassion for the Palestinian people. Now, in the same weekend, after she made that speech, she also said this in Wisconsin, at the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, to a Palestinian supporter. Watch this.
Right now, I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire.
But what about the genocide?
I want the war to end.
What about the genocide?
And I respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah. There we go again. Now let's go back, because I want you to watch his demeanor, okay?
I know what you're speaking of. I want the ceasefire.
But what about the genocide?
I want the war to end.
What about the genocide?
What about the genocide, though? Does he seem hostile to you? Is he running up to try to knock her over or anything? No. Is he screaming? Is he violent in any way? No, he's not. Right? What about the genocide, though? Her response is, right now, I am speaking. She didn't learn anything from the time that she made that same statement in Michigan Now she's making that statement in Wisconsin. So it's like I said before, it almost feels like they want to lose. Am I alone? Like you didn't learn from before? Stop it with the you are speaking. He's speaking right now. We're speaking right now. We have a voice too. As a matter of fact, when someone says, well, Kamala said she was speaking, so I was like, yeah, you go, girl. Woo! Yeah, speaking. Kamala said, I am speaking. You can push back on them by saying this. Well, we get to speak too. Do our voices not matter? We're the voters. When do we get to be heard? When do we get a chance to express how we feel? That's when you get the opportunity, when they're right in front of you. Now, for the people who come to me and say, oh, you could just write a strongly worded letter. Yeah, let's see how that goes. If the presidential candidate for the United States is standing right in front of you, that is your time to say what needs to be said. That's just simply how I see it. But watch what happens from here.
Respect your right to speak, but I am speaking right now.
Yeah.
So
2,000 people dead. 19,000 children are dead. 19,000 children are dead.
So you hear what he's saying? Over 2,000 Lebanese people dead, over 19,000 children dead. And I like I said, I think those numbers are higher than what they're reporting. But you see this? And someone yells out in the crowd, let that woman speak. You see this? It's the whole, that's why she can get away with the whole I am speaking thing. Because people are like, oh, she's a woman. Let that woman speak. But no, let other people speak too. Oh, we've been listening to you talk for years. Because we listen to you talk right now while you're campaigning for president. We listen to you talk when you were helping Joe Biden. We listen to you talk when you were running for president in 2020. We listen to you talk when you got into the Senate. We've been listening to you talk for a long time. It's time for you to listen to other people talking that are not celebrities. That's not Usher. That's not Lizzo. That's not Oprah. Not the people that came out to endorse you. But you can't really go to an event as a presidential candidate, especially right now, and expect people not to ask about the genocide. I don't know, man. I don't know.
So, listen, what he's talking about, it's real. And so that's not the subject that I came to discuss today, but it's real, and I respect his voice. So listen, here we are. You all.
It's real. I respect his voice, but I am speaking. It's real. I respect his voice, but let's get him the hell up out of here. It's real. I respect his voice, but let's move on to another subject.
Have the right and the ability to have opportunity available to you at each step of the way.
Now let's move on and let's talk about opportunity. You know who doesn't have opportunity? People in Gaza. Apparently people in Lebanon right now too. People in the West Bank. And it just like drives me crazy. Like when I think about it, how do you go from that topic to, listen, you all have an opportunity? Like, how do you go from talking about people, you know, just the genocide to let's talk about the opportunities you guys have here in America? Now we will move on because there's more, right? So, because that's not it, folks. That is not it. Then there is more. Because all weekend, like I said, she has been dancing around this issue, saying one thing in one state, another thing in another state. And then you're going to see here's her trying to be, so what, some called compassionate again. And she says Kamala Harris was asked just now whether she might lose the election because of the war in Gaza. So does everybody hear this? Rather, she will lose the election because of the war in Gaza. Listen to her response.
How risky is it that you could lose the election?
Well, it is undeniable that
it is something that everyone is aware of what is happening there. I speak publicly all the time about the fact that there are so many tragic stories coming from Gaza, and of course, the first in this phase of everything that has happened, the first most tragic story is October 7th.
Pause. Let's back up again, and we're going to show you what she does wrong here. Watch this.
How risky is it that you could lose the election?
Well, it is undeniable that it is something that everyone is aware of what is happening there. I speak publicly all the time about the fact that there are so many tragic stories coming from Gaza, and of course, the first in this phase of everything that has happened, the first most tragic story is October 7th.
Okay, first problem. There are so many tragic stories that are coming out of Gaza. Great. What stories? What are some of the stories that are coming out of Gaza, Kamala? How come you don't talk about it? That was a perfect opportunity for her to talk about what is happening in Gaza. How come you don't mention that they were starving people and they haven't let food in since October 2nd? How did you mention that? How did you mention all the kids that have been dead? How about you mention all these videos that people see everywhere of kids' bodies like torn in half? How about the camps, the refugee camp tents that were set on fire? How don't you bring up any of these stories that you just mentioned? Huh? Instead, what she does is she proceeds to go back into, let me talk about how bad it was for Israel. So she pushes the story back to October 7th. Now, the question, I believe, was, are you concerned that you may not win because of Gaza? Perfect opportunity for Kamala Harris to say, you know what? Let's talk about what's happening in Gaza. Here are some of the stories that are coming out of Gaza. And there are a number of things she could have mentioned. And also a number of things that she could have mentioned what happened in Lebanon with the walkie-talkie explosions. She could talk about that, about Israel bombing crowded streets in Beirut. She could talk about that. She also could have talked about what's happening in the West Bank of Israel stealing homes from Palestinian people, the largest land theft that we have seen in the Middle East. I can give you a number of examples that she could have started to talk about, but what does she do? She proceeds to, let's talk about how bad it was for Israel. And in order to do that, you got to go back to October 7th. And she's not going to mention anything that happened before October 7th to the Palestinian people. That's on purpose. So it's like, when someone comes to you and they say, aren't you concerned about losing because of Gaza? They're talking about people who are oppressed. They're talking about people that are occupied. And for you to divert the attention away from the people that are being oppressed and occupied back to the people who are the occupiers and the oppressors, that says a lot about you. And yes, that is doing the bidding of white supremacy. Oh man, those damn slaves. Let's talk about what happened to the slaves. Let's talk about what's happening with slavery. Yeah, there are many stories coming out of the Carolinas. And one of those stories goes all the way back to, one of the plantation owners was slapped in the face. We don't have to take it back that far. Just go back to the civil rights movement. Do you think this will cost you the election? With the Jim Crow laws and what happened with Rosa Parks, and I'm seeing videos of Black people being beaten and have dogs sicked on them, and the police are beating them. Well, yes, there are many stories that are coming out of Georgia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, etc., Alabama. But one of them is let's go back to what happened on that bus when Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat. And that poor man had to stand there while she was sitting in that seat. This is the brainwashing in this country. And this goes beyond politics. You are taking the attention off of the group that is oppressed and occupied, and you are choosing in that moment to put the attention on the oppressor and the occupier. That says a lot about you, Kamala Harris. And you know what else that tells me? For all the people who push and say, you got to support this Black woman, which I done told you guys before, her father never said that he was Black. Her father has never said this, never said it. Why should we in turn be pressed to do something for her when she is sitting up here capping for white supremacy? Let's continue with the video. Aye.
And what happened that day, and then what has happened since. And I think what's critically important as we look at this moment is, one, acknowledging the tragedy of what has happened in Gaza in terms of the extraordinary number of innocent Palestinians who have been killed, and taking that seriously and speaking truth about that. In addition, of course, to what I said about what happened on October 7 in terms of 1,200 innocent Israelis being slaughtered, women being horribly raped.
There she goes again, repeating that lie. She continues, and this is another thing, by the way, this isn't something that's just known in independent media. Every time Kamala Harris continues to repeat that fabrication of the sexual assault on October 7th, which, by the way, there's still no evidence for that. Arab American voters hear that. Muslim American voters hear that as well. And that pushes them farther and farther away from Kamala Harris. See, that's the thing. People hear this and they think it's just us in independent media that are like, well, no, it's not. It's not just the Electric Intifada. It wasn't just Dropkick News. It wasn't just the Gray Zone who had covered this, I think, earlier on with Electric Intifada. It's not just us. You don't think the Muslim American community hears this lie too? She doesn't think Arab Americans don't hear this lie too? So she continues to repeat that lie. Like I said, it's almost like she wants to lose. And when I say that, people are like, oh, Sabs, why would she want to lose? Why would the Democrats want to lose? They don't give a fuck. They just want to fundraise. They just want to raise money. And honestly, they would rather lose and support Israel. They would rather support Israel unconditionally and lose, and then let Trump win, so that they can come back in 2028 and say, oh, see how horrible Trump was? So you got to put us back in now. This is a game. It's not even chess anymore. It's checkers, because it's so obvious how they move now. Let's let her finish here.
And then fast forwarding to today with the killing of Sinwar, this creates an opening that I believe we must take full advantage of to dedicate ourselves to ending this war and bringing the hostages home.
But it's not working so far.
You know what? Listen, as it relates to the issues in the Middle East and in particular in that region, it has never been easy. But that doesn't mean we give up, okay? It is always going to be difficult. It does not mean we give up. We can't give up.
But why is it always going to be difficult? Because there is one apartheid state in power. That is why it's always going to be difficult. You can't let this one state just run over these people, and I'm talking for generations, and expect them not to push back and expect them not to care. Like, these are the things that drive me crazy. It's just people seriously act like this is no big deal. Now, I want you to hear Sammy Hamdi, because Sammy Hamdi is very clear about this, about telling Muslim voters not to support Kamala Harris. And for those just joining, no, I'm not a Trump supporter. I'm voting for Jill Stein. I don't support the Democratic Party. I don't support the Republican Party. Last time I supported Democrats was Bernie. So I think people need to hear this, because it's incredibly important. And I can't say this enough. These people cannot be rewarded for genocide. They cannot. And I can't believe I even have to say this. And I look at what's happening with the Muslim voting community, and I look at them with such admiration, because they're willing to come together as a group and say, no, we're not going to support you. And I'm sitting back and I'm thinking about how those of us that are Black Americans could have done the same thing to the Democratic Party. And why haven't we had a movement where we could do that, where we say, no, we're not going to support you over whatever issue you want, whether it's reparations, whether it's the police state. That's a big one. Whether it's choosing to fund Israel and Ukraine instead of putting money back into communities here, particularly low income Black communities in the United States. Whatever, whether it's healthcare, whatever issue you want it over, I'm sitting back and I'm asking, why can't we do that? And I think a big part of it is the gatekeepers within the Black church. I think that's a big part of the problem. And the sororities and the fraternities, the Greek life system. I think there's a lot of older Black people that have been gatekeepers for a long time. You add Al Sharpton and his reporting ass too, because Al Sharpton was a snitch. There's been a lot of gatekeepers within our community that continue to hold us back from getting real progress, just so that those individuals in particular can continue to go to these galas and balls with people like Michelle Obama and Kamala Harris and Al Sharpton and all that kind of stuff. They get to pursue those opportunities. They get to live a certain lifestyle, and they do so by continuing to convince lower class and poor Black people to continue to support a party that does not have their best interests at mind for their community. And this needs to be a deeper conversation, because I've been paying attention and I know exactly what's going on. This is a problem. Is a big problem. That's why we can't have this type of organization, because of the people in the community, the older voices in the community that says we have to support them. We don't have to do a damn thing for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party ain't doing nothing for us. And don't come to me with FDR did this and FDR did that. I was not alive when FDR was born. And if you have to go all the way back to FDR to tell me when the Democratic Party did something for Black people, that right there should let you know something. But listen to what Sammy Hamdi said, because I thought that this was important as well.
So the Zionists are terrified of this scenario, that Harris loses because she supported them, that Harris loses because she gave them unwavering support. And not only that, the Democrat advantage is broken because a party has now got 5% of the vote, not because the party has any interesting policies, not because the party itself is great, but because this party became the vehicle that people manifested their anger. And as a result, now this party is recognized as a third party. It's able to compete with the Democrats. When the Democrats sit around the table, they won't say, thank God we backed a genocide. They will say, was backing a genocide worth it? Was Israel worth it? Were the Zionists worth it? We took millions from them and still lost. We backed them and still lost. We supported them and still lost. When the Zionists go knocking on their door in 2 years to support them in the midterm elections, the Democrats will say, hang on a second, we took your money last time and still lost. We supported you last time and still lost. I'm sorry, you're not invincible in the way that you were before. We'll support you, but we need a Palestinian state. We'll support you, but we can't give you unwavering support. We'll support you, but we can't give you the level of support that you wanted, because we need to go and consult with this group of people who took to the ballot box. They never did before. They never used to vote properly before. They never used to engage before. But because they hated you so much, because we backed you, anything where you are involved forces these thousands to come out and vote and punish us. We don't want to be seen too close to you. You're not a political asset the way you were before. You're now a political liability because a president lost because she supported you. And now we're wrestling with a third party because people were so angry they went and broke our advantage. This is the point that the Zionists are worried about. And the reason why it upsets me when people say, go vote Harris again, is because the Zionists, I know that you're hearing from right-wingers that they want Trump to win, but they want Trump to win on the basis that Harris loses because of the economy. If Harris is going to lose because of Gaza, they'd prefer Harris to win. If Harris is going to lose because she supported Zionism, they would prefer Harris to win. The only reason they want Trump to win is they believe that if Trump wins, then maybe they might might have some support for Trump that perhaps Harris hasn't given. But if Harris is going to lose because of Zionism, they want Harris to win. They are willing to preserve their invincibility over losing it. And the proof is when they put the tweet out that 99 races run, 99 races won, and the amount of unprecedented money they spent to topple Jamel Bowman and to topple Cory Bush, and the amount of money they spent considering going against Rashida and subsequently not going against her because they didn't want to ruin that invincibility record. The Zionists, the worst case scenario for the Zionists is that Harris loses because she supported Gaza, because she supported the Zionists, and that the third party gets 5%, permanently breaking that advantage, because the Democrats, when they sit at the table, they will say, guys, we lost all of this not because of economic policies. We lost all of this not because of our social policies. We lost it all because we listened to a bunch of Zionists who gave us a lot of money and we still lost. We shouldn't have done it. We need to alter our course in the way that we go. And
that part right there, I think is important for people to hear, because the reality is when people say, oh, well, third parties aren't going to win, we don't have ranked choice voting across the United States. The goal is to get the Green Party to that 5%. And I think that is the point. But also it goes beyond that. Abandon Harris has endorsed Jill Stein. They are abandoning Kamala Harris, period. Right? So we have Arab American voters and Muslim voters that have decided to say, no, we are not going to support genocide Kamala, killer Kamala, and genocide Joe. Right? We're not going to support this administration. We're not going to support Kamala Harris, even though she has Tim Walz as the running mate. She won't be with Joe Biden regardless. She said, we're not going to do it. We're not going to support that party. And at the end of the day, it's about solidarity. And I would never want you or anyone else to support the party, the administration that is funding and aiding a genocide, period. I don't care who it was. And you know what's really interesting? I am willing to bet you that if this was happening under Donald Trump, if Donald Trump was in office right now and the genocide was happening under him, I bet you people would be even more people would be sympathetic to the people who yelled at the pro-Palestinian protesters that were speaking out at Kamala Harris's events. I'm pretty sure those people would be even more sympathetic to the cause because it's the opposite party that it's happening under. Kind of hard to wash your hands of a genocide. I'm just saying. And you can wash your hands of a lot of different things, but washing your hands of a genocide? No. And I told you before about the numbers. So people are wondering, like, who could they pick up? I really do believe the focus right now is trying to replace those particular voters in the swing states with white women in suburban Detroit, in the suburban area of Philadelphia. I think that is the plan. Let's get out to the suburban white women. Let's let the white women come out and support me over the Roe v. Wade issue. So that way we won't have to worry about answering to the Muslim voters and we can just kind of push them aside. Now, my question to you is this. How long before they're willing to point their finger at black voters, which they say that they need to win? How long is it going to be for they're willing to point their finger at us and say, we don't need you anymore. Let's push you aside and bring in someone else. I think that's something to think about. All right, let's go to some of the comments, fam. Boom, 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 boom. Thank you. Well connected. Can you say MK one time for the fans? MK one time for the fans. MK one time? I don't know what that. Okay. That's different. Satra Del Rey, did you go to reparations debate at Roxbury Library? No. I said I would try to, but unfortunately this month is swamped for me. I actually have a speech that I have to give. I have a talk that I have coming up as well about the cost of living crisis. So I've been preparing for that, but October's been crazy. I wanted to go, but I was already booked. I'm sorry. But I've stayed in touch with people that are in Boston, and one of the members of the Boston Mutual Aid chapter, I think she went to that. I'll talk to her tomorrow. Thank you, Samud Sterling. LOL. When I mock Kamala, cons, I get banned from TikTok. Haha, I'm speaking. Kaime says, and she's been vile every step along the way. Tulsi Gabbard is trash, but one of my favorite political moments is when she dog walked Kamala Copp's ass. Yeah, I remember that one. Thank you, Courtney. Let that woman lose on November 5th. You know what, Courtney? That could be like a song. Somebody title this, Let That Woman Lose. That could be a song, and I really think it could be trending. People can get it trending. Let that woman lose. Let that woman lose. Give me a beat. Give me a beat. Let that woman lose. All right, Gypsy. Kamala talks without saying a thing. Yeah. Thank you, Titans. The Amish community is rallying for Trump. That could push him over in PA. The Amish community votes. I didn't realize they participated in electoral politics, but what do I know? That's interesting. Thank you. Her name is. She's speaking also means she's not listening. There you go. Thank you, Brendan. Kamala, the timeshare salesman with opportunity. Thank you, big time. Will you talk about the 6 people shot on SEPTA buses last week by Black teens in Philly? I have not seen that story. I'll have to look for that. But thank you for letting me know. Thank you, 100 Black Roke. I got something soon for you. I listened to you drill Dr. C. Oh my God, Dr. Shiva. Ain't nothing doing with him other than supplements. Oh my God. Thank you, Dolan. Notice she never talked about the Black struggle post or after slavery in her campaign, ever. Crack taking the Black man out the home, nothing. No, because she spent part of her career as a prosecutor locking Black men up. Yeah, she don't want to talk about that. Thank you, Sparky. The West and Israel are like the Martians in the movie Mars Attacks. We come in peace. We come in peace. Oh my God. My sister, that's my sister's favorite movie. I didn't know a lot of people saw Mars Attacks. So you're familiar with the Matt Damon reference, right? Matt Damon. Thank you, Chris Collin. When she described Palestinians, it's unfortunate. When it's Israelis, it's a massacre. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good pick up there, Chris. I'm glad you noticed that. Thank you, HM. Heritage Man here. Have respect for your commentary. You are a voice of truth against genocide, racism, and oppression. Free Palestine. Thank you, HM. And I think that says Palestinian Heritage Man. Again, StreamYard removes the, I'm sorry. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Irish Heritage. Sorry. Thank you, Bullet the Bunny. Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Sabby. They fundraise more off of Donnie. This is a play for 28. They want the race close. Well, thank you, Mr. Bunny. Thank you, Mike G. All she cares about is that glass of wine at night. You guys remember there was this thing called Wine Moms? And then like at one point, I remember I saw like this episode. I feel like it was a Dateline special or something like that, where they were saying like we should not promote wine moms because it's not healthy to tell women to drink wine every night or something. I don't know. You just reminded me of that. Thank you for the super sticker. Well connected. Boosh, 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 boosh. Thank you, Janice. FDR excluded Black people from a lot of the New Deal. You're right. Thank you, Ace Play. I am Muslim first, then Black, and I will not vote for genocide. I will not vote for Trump either. Dr. Jill Stein has my vote. Thank you, Ace Play. Thank you, Bullet the Bunny. Dems lose in a close race. They raise another billion running for 28 and get to blame the Greens. Block AIPAC money to Dawn. That is the insidious play. Bunny coming up with all the heat. Thank you, Wanker. Read Israeli historian Ilhan Pape, 10 myths about Israel. I do need to look into that. Thank you, B. My 83-year-old stepdad made me buy a Stein yard sign. Your dad. Tell dad I said, what's up? Thank you, Well Connected. I wanted the Mr. Mackey. Okay. And thank you, Fitness. Senior show Thursday. Mehdi Hassan shucking and jiving Arab style. Yeah, man. Oh my God. Like people were really coming after him recently on social media too. And thank you. I know myself. Suburban white woman vote for their sons, die for Trump. And can we get the comment on Rockfin, Eric? Thank you. Rockfin, put on a red light. You don't have to put on a red light. I'm sorry, I'm just being silly. It's Sunday. Roxanne. All right, thank you for the tip on Rockfin JVB. Right on target, Sabby. Thank you. Hey. All right. Now we're going to get to something pretty funny. Yeah, I think we have this one queued up and ready to go. So this one's funny. Lord Jamar, Candace Owens, and Marc Lamont Hill had a debate on Piers Morgan's show. There are two parts of this debate. One part is about Diddy. We didn't talk enough about Diddy. We're going to focus on the second part of this debate. I'm pretty sure some of you are probably happy about that. Like, no more Diddy yet. We got to take breaks from Diddy, okay? We got to take breaks. Yeah. So the second part of this conversation is really interesting. Lord Jamar is a part of this. Now, Lord Jamar he's a part of the group called Brand Nubian, and he was heavily vocal about Kamala Harris and what he thinks about her and why he doesn't want to support her. So that starts off this conversation, and then it gets very heated about whether or not Kamala Harris can say that she is of Black American culture. I think you're going to like this one. Let's go ahead and bring this in here. Oh, buddy, let's go.
Which, are you surprised about the amount of pickup that got?
A little bit, yeah. But not really, because I think people are a little shocked that someone like me, you know, from a group Brand Nubian that they feel is pro-Black, why would I come out in support of Donald Trump or go against a Kamala Harris who they are trying to put up as a Black woman, and I don't see it.
Well, let me. I'm going to play the first of all the Barack Obama clip, and then I'm going to play the clip that you said in response to it. Let's play the two.
And you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, part of it makes me think that, well, you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president. And you're coming up with other alternatives and other reasons for it.
And now I want to play the clip from Lord Jamar talking about that.
Well, I feel that she's so bad that guess what? I might just go around and vote for Trump. And this is my first time saying this out loud. But y'all think you're going to shame somebody or bully into voting for this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And now you're going to make me be Mr. Anti. You keep coming at me with this bullshit. You keep coming at me talking about, oh, it's a shame that you're not supporting a Black woman. And she's not Black.
Now, Mark, you know, let me ask you honestly, Mark, if this had been the other way round, if this had been, hang on, Jamal, Lord Jamal, I'll come to you in a sec. I just want to get their reaction to what we've just played because it's gone viral, as I said. But Mark, you know, if it had been the other way round, if you had a former white president saying, you've got to vote for Trump if you're white, you'd have gone absolutely nuts. So why is it okay for Barack Obama to order Black people to vote for Kamala Harris, given how unpopular she currently is to the extent where Trump is ahead in 5 of the 7 swing states? Why should they?
So a couple of things. First, no one should vote for anybody based on identity politics. You should never vote for somebody because
so Obama's
they're
wrong,
Black, right? Yeah, Obama's wrong. I mean, I didn't vote for him. I
love that.
Like, oh, Obama's wrong. Yeah, Obama's wrong. Yeah, so
we all agree.
But we don't all agree though, because I don't think though. I think Obama's wrong for several reasons in that video. But Obama's not arguing that you should vote for Kamala Harris because she's Black. He's arguing you should vote for them because you're Black. In other words,
no. on. Come on now. I think we all know what Obama meant. We all know what Obama was saying, that you should vote for because she's black. Because again, remember what he said in that video. The only thing I think of, oh, she's a woman. You don't want to support a woman, right? So it just, I don't, why? Mark, what happened? What happened to Marc Lamont Hill? What happened to you? What do you mean? We all know what Barack Obama was saying. He said it. He said it's the problem seems to be you brothers don't want to vote for a woman. He was calling out black men. And what is happening?
Words. She best represents your interests. If I were running right, and if I'm a Green Party member, right?
That's not what he was
I haven't
saying.
voted Democrat.
He was,
but she doesn't. So let's go back to that part right there. Hold on. Just this part right here.
He's not arguing that you should vote for Kamala Harris because she's black. He's arguing you should vote for them because you're black. In other words, she best represents your interests. If I were running,
but she doesn't. That's the problem. Okay. Just because her complexion may be, she may have a similar shade of complexion, that doesn't mean that she represents our best interests. How does she represent our best interests when she spent most of her career as a prosecutor locking up black men, locking up black parents for truancy, aiding to the school to prison pipeline? I don't think that has the black community's best interest at heart. Do you? It doesn't sound like it to me. We all know she's pro-cop. We all know she wants to give more money to the police. How is that really representing our best interests? How is she representing our best interests, Mark? Tell me. Sabby want to know. Sabby wants to know.
Right, and if I'm a Green Party member, right?
That's not what he was
I haven't
saying.
voted Democrat.
He was playing the race card. He was playing a skin color card. He was saying if you are black, you have a duty to vote for the black candidate.
Yes.
You don't.
Listen,
as Lil Jamal rightly
again,
said
to what
in
I'm
his
saying.
furious rant about it. Why?
Why
should he be told who to vote for?
Okay, first of all, Piers, again, you just said I'm bringing in the race card when the question you asked me was, should Obama be telling people to vote for people because they're black?
Obama played the race card, not you. I said Obama did.
Oh, then I misheard you. I apologize. I apologize. I misheard you. I'm wrong. You're right. So to the point, Obama is saying that black people, again, I disagree with him, but let's disagree with him for the right reason. He's saying that as black people, vote your interest. Don't reject this person. As a black person, you should vote for the person that uplifts the black community. That's her. And don't let your...
How is she uplifting the black community? Like, I still haven't heard any responses about, like, I want to know, how is she uplifting the black community? And don't give me the response of she went to HBCU. And a lot of people go to HBCUs. You don't have to be black to attend a HBCU either, by the way. I know a number of people that went to HBCUs that are not black. So I'm just asking you, after everything I told you about her record, how does she uplift the black community? So that's what I want to know. Just seriously.
Patriarchy, don't let your hatred of women, don't let your this make you not do it. My issue with it is it frames black people and black men in particular as pathological and people who act against their interests and acts as if black men don't. Also, it's ahistorical. Black men actually do vote Democrat. I argue more than they should. So I think it's wrong for lots of reasons. I disagree with Jamar, though, my brother. Calling her, and again, I heard a bleep. I've been in the hood a long time. From that context, it sounded like you were calling her the B word. I couldn't see it, but I heard it. I'm not going to vote for that. Bleep sounded like the B word. I can't imagine a circumstance where we need to call her that. You know, in real life and in music, and there's just no reason for that. She doesn't deserve that any more than she deserves to be told that she's not qualified to run a Dunkin' Donuts. Those types of comments, I think, are unnecessary, even if you might agree that black people shouldn't be sheep. How does she disrespect you?
By placating to me, by giving me word salads and all kind of nonsense, acting like she doesn't have to answer questions, being the artful dodger. That's very disrespectful.
You think she deserves to be called a B for that?
Well, listen, first of all, the platform I was on was a different kind of platform. You know what I mean? It's a much looser platform. It's more hip hop orientated. And if she wants to get down, act like she's black, well,
She is black,
People get
man. She
called
is black.
niggas
That's the
and
other piece.
bitches.
I don't want to
She's
interrupt
not
Candace. I
black.
know
She's
Candace
not
got stuff to
black.
say. I want to hear
She's not
Candace.
black.
I'm sorry.
Well,
She is
first
black,
of all, let me
and you're
just
being
clear
and you're being particular.
I am really mad at Marc Lamont. Well, not mad. I'm really disappointed in Marc Lamont Hill. It's really weird to me. Like, he has been a Green Party voter, like, and I think he's probably a member of the Green Party. I'm not a member of the Green Party, but he's been a Green Party voter for years. And it's really weird. It makes me wonder, like, did he back Joe Biden in 2020 or did he vote Green? Did he back Hillary Clinton in 2016 or did he, vote for, Jill Stein? I think Howie Hawkins was the candidate in 2020. It's really weird to me that all of a sudden, like, now with this particular presidency, it's we got to support Kamala so that we don't get Donald Trump. But you're a third party voter. So why are you even tapping into the duopoly now? And let me know. If I'm wrong, guys, let me know. Did he support Joe Biden in 2020? If he did, not take that back and be, okay, maybe he did do that. But it seems kind of weird. It seems kind of weird to me.
Hypocritical, bro.
He's not
bro, you've
black.
been real hypocritical.
Let me clear two things up. First of all, Pierce, you had a guest on named VJ or something that said I never voted or something like that. I don't know where he pulled that out his ass from, but yes, I have voted before. I actually voted for Obama the first time around. I got caught in that nonsense. But also, that comment that you're showing me was not in response to what Obama said. I said that prior to Obama coming out trying to be the father of, black men and all this type of stuff.
Right.
But it sounded like it went with it.
It did, yeah.
But in response, listen, Barry, you're not our father, and we're not going to just, you're not going to shake the finger of condemnation at us and think that you're going to shame us into doing what you want. We're not, we're waking up as black people right now, and we're thinking for ourselves, and we're not just going along with the Democratic Party. First of all, I'm a registered independent, so don't act like I'm waving the Republican flag.
Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
But when it comes to leadership and all this type of thing, I don't see why we're trying to give this woman a promotion. She had one job, which was the border. She failed at that. They kept her in the background this whole time. I saw what they were going to do with her from the beginning. And
hold on. I think I got a buffer here. Let me just pause it there and come back out. Sorry, guys. And play here. Let's see if we can get to 4940. I'm just going back in, Eric. Okay, so 4940. Right up there. There we go.
I don't feel that she's the one. I'm sorry.
And by the way, you are absolutely I know, Jamal, you are perfectly entitled. I want to bring in Candace, who's been waiting patiently. I mean, Candace, this whole sort of premise, and I'm glad Lord Jamal clarified he said that before Obama spoke, although his answer clearly would have been exactly the same. The response would have been the same because it's all part of the same thing, which is this sort of weird thing, which frankly is quite racist. There's no other way to look at it. That you should judge according to your skin color and feel a duty, a compulsion to do so, seems to me to be racist.
It is fundamentally racist, and it's something that I think Black people are right to be upset about. And then there's also this. You are correct to say that there's nothing about Kamala Harris or Barack Obama, for being frank, that is Black. I covered this on my show yesterday, went through Barack Obama's history. There is something that is very cartoon.
What was that look for? Marc Lamont Hill put his eyes up towards the ceiling.
About them working to blackify a politician before they run for office. And what I mean by that is like Barry Soetoro, first 8 years of his life grew up in Indonesia. Okay, then he was with his white mother and his Indonesian stepfather. He then went to Hawaii, which had a population of just 5,000 Black people. 86% of them were in the military, and attended a school that is $31,000 per year, and it was all white people. he was raised by his white grandparents, the Dunhams. He's never lied about this, by the way. He then went off to college and had a white dorm mate, dated a white woman. There's nothing about Barack Obama's history that gives him, in my viewpoint, like the stepping ground to be talking to the brothers about the Black American experience. If you've ever even been to Hawaii, it doesn't even feel like America. Genuinely, it feels like we took this country from an Asian country.
So that part was kind of funny when she said talking about the brothers. I will say this. I think I understand somewhat what Candace is saying, but I think the important piece that is missing from Candace's message is the lineage part. Because regardless if Barack Obama lived in Hawaii or lived in Florida, wherever, it's the lineage piece, right? Because like I said before, Black Americans are a specific ethnic group. Like I'm a Black American. All right. So Candace knows this as well, because as she's talked about this before, like I think her father is descendant of slavery, because she said like her father side of the family were sharecroppers here in the US. And I think her mother's side of the family is from the Virgin Islands. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the story. But anyway, she's familiar and aware of that. But the thing is the lineage. It's not about that you lived in Hawaii, and Hawaii is probably one of the most, last time I checked, one of the most diverse states in the country, by the way. But it's not about like whether or not she's like, he had a white dorm mate. A lot of people have white dorm mates because there are not a lot of, I mean, I had different color dorm mates as well. I mean, it's just who's the majority. So if you go to a PWI, then obviously you're not the majority. So chances are you probably might have a white roommate. So I think the things that she's using to pick out, I don't think are necessarily the right things. Instead, I think that she should be focusing on the lineage, which is true. He's not. So let's go on a little bit here.
This state from an Asian country. And so when you realize that and you see how right before they run, suddenly the story changes. They drop a book and they work to blackify themselves. Obama didn't know his father, his Kenyan father growing up. And now all of a sudden he wants to lean into this stereotype. To me, it feels like they're both wearing blackface. I can't sort through all of Kamala's various accents. There's so many of them. She's in front of a Latina crowd. Suddenly she's Selena, and she's speaking like a Latina. And then she's in front of a Jamaican crowd and she's dropping man. I can't deal with it. It is way too much Hollywood acting for me. Then she's got the black scent going and girl, what are you talking about? She's in front of a white crowd. She's speaking like a California Valley girl. I don't trust it. Yeah, I just do not trust somebody that slips that quickly through so many personalities. There is nothing about her upbringing, extraordinarily wealthy. Just she was sworn in Congress as an Indian American. Her mother is Indian. She grew up with an Indian experience and was proud of that until she ran for office for president of the United States. And that is something that I am not comfortable with. I do not accept this narrative that she should be speaking about herself as a Black woman. It's not okay, and I fully reject it.
Okay.
And this is where I sort of, side a little bit more with Candace on this particular issue than I do Marc Lamont Hill, because that is true. When she was running for Senate, and I played this video before multiple times on the show, when she was questioned by a reporter, so if you win, you will be the first Indian American senator. And she said yes. She didn't correct them and say, well, Indian American and Jamaican or Indian American and Black. Like, she didn't do that. And it was just kind of weird to me. Before anybody come for me, I have biracial people in my family and they don't do what Kamala did. And I think that's the big difference. So I was just like, then when she won, it was like first Indian American senator. And then all of a sudden she was Black. And that's the thing. And like people, I will say that and people will say, oh, Sabby, that's what Trump said. I was like, but he's right about that. Like, you can not support Donald Trump and admit that he's right about the things that he's right about, right? I cannot support Kamala Harris and admit that she's right about the things that she's right about. Like, I think that she's right. I've said this before. She's right about the abortion issue. I said she's really strong on that issue, which is why she's trying to take that issue and use that to recruit white suburban women to replace the Muslim voters that she is losing. It's very obvious, right? So I think this is where people get caught up in the partisan politics and they can't even admit when someone is right about what they're saying and when they're wrong about what they're saying. And that's why I say we need to like break away from that and just focus on the message that's being delivered. And she's right. When she won for the Senate, she was described as the first Indian. She did not, she did not correct it. I mean, if somebody wrote something about me and they said, oh, look, it's Sabrina. She's the first I don't know. Let's say if they said she's the first like Jamaican to, I would correct and say I'm not Jamaican. How hard is that? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Mark, I just want to play you a quick clip from Kamala Harris talking to Roland Martin, listing all the reasons Trump is dangerous for black people. I'll get your response.
He is not looking out for folks when he was a landlord and would not rent to black families, sued for it. When he took out a full-page ad in the New York Times against those 5 teenagers, black and Latino, who were innocent, saying they should be executed in Central Park 5. When you look at the first black president of the United States, and he had birther lines, and now you look at black immigrants, legal immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, and he gets on a debate stage and says they're eating their pets. Come on.
So again, what did I tell you when I mentioned what they were saying about the Haitian migrants? I showed you guys those things were not true. I showed you how people took one video, which the woman wasn't even Haitian and wasn't an immigrant, and just ran with it, et cetera, et cetera. So she can say those things about Donald Trump, and you can have those things and you can say, okay, this is messed up. He should not have done that, especially with the Central Park 5. Like, you can call out all those things, which we have called out before on this show. What does that do with Kamala Harris, though? Now, all of a sudden claiming that she's a black American. And people got to see, like, I don't like it. I don't like the cosplaying. And I don't like, it just is what it is. Her own father, if you look it up, her own father does not refer to himself as black. I don't know how many times I have to point this out to people. And I know people are saying Candace did like a whole like series on this, but it's not just Candace. People were doing this. We're talking about this before Kamala ran for president. People were talking about this back in 2018. So that's what I'm trying to get people to understand that. And I'm glad that it's on a larger platform, so it's giving people more eyes. But the reality is like her father said he's not. Her father told you what he was. So why would people kill me with she went to HBCU. I'm going to tell you guys again, anyone can go to a HBCU. You don't have to be black to go to a HBCU. You don't have to be black to join a black sorority or a black fraternity. I don't know how many times I got to say this to people. Aye.
Man is dangerous.
And my question mark is simply this. If he's so dangerous to black people, why is it that his popularity is growing, particularly with black men, and Kamala Harris is falling from where it was with Joe Biden, who was white?
Well, I think part of it is because of the steady disinformation and misinformation campaign. Again, I am a critic of Kamala Harris. I'm literally watching her co-sign and underwrite as vice president and on the campaign trail a vicious genocide in Gaza. I ain't got no time to support or defend Kamala Harris on a lot of issues. I think there's a very practical, pragmatic reason to vote for her, and that is to say, I don't want Donald Trump. And I think a lot of people are making that choice, but the people who are not are often being fed misinformation, including what's just been said by my
Pause. I don't know. I think Mark got nervous, but I just want to add this. Mark, you know that's not true. You know that after it was announced that Kamala Harris was taking Biden's place as the presidential candidate for the Democratic Party, you know that you jumped right on that Kamala train. We can go back to the videos that you know that you were excited about that and said, yeah, well, I think that we should support Kamala. And yeah, and I called this out. A number of people that were talking about like free Palestine since after October 7th, the moment that it switched from Biden to Kamala Harris, they were ready to get on board that Kamala train, despite all the things that she has been saying as well, and continues to say that she will support and back Israel first and not, withhold arms or weapons or anything like that. So those were the people that I was calling to. I'm like, if you weren't one of those people, then I wasn't talking to you. But Mark, you were the one that was talking about Gaza every single day. Every single day. You were numbering the days on each video. Day 1, day 2, day 3. So come on, man. Come on. You were getting cuckoo for Kamala for a minute. You were.
Your colleagues here and you, Piers, you cracking it up. But a lot of it is just not true. And I'm just going to say it real fast. First, I didn't say you said it. I said what they said. So first, the question of qualification. First, Jamar said again, she only had one job in this border. That's just not true, right? That's not the only.
She was the border czar.
Vice president's lots of jobs.
And now
I'm
everyone's
disagreeing with the claim that she had one job, not that she didn't have that job.
She was given specific
This is what I'm saying.
responsibility for the border. And now everyone's rushing to pretend she wasn't. The same people who literally told her the borders are on liberal shows.
I'm not disagreeing.
Oh God, I don't understand. Why is Mark so emotional about this? It's really weird. It's almost like someone's talking about or criticizing like his friend. And in that case, I can understand, but it was kind of weird to me. Like he's a little bit more emotional about this than anybody else on this panel. If you notice, Candace is sitting there kind of calm. Lord Jamar is just like, he said his criticism about Kamala, but he's still sitting there kind of calm. And I will add to this, the calling her the B word and all that kind of stuff, you can criticize without calling a woman a bitch. So I will add that, which from what I understand, I think he apologized after this anyway. Pierce is kind of calm. But when it comes to this particular issue with Kamala, Mark is very emotional. It's not that serious. Like it's really not. Like you really ain't got to go to bat for her like that. Oh my God.
Now pretend they didn't.
Okay.
What other public job
and what
did
I'm
she
saying
have? Like they kept her in the background for a reason, for a very long time.
Who's the president pro tem? Who's the president pro?
What is happening? Why is he doing this? Guys, why is Mark acting like this? I ain't never seen him like this. Why is he doing this? He's like, who? Why are you so emotional?
Temp of the Senate, President pro temp of the Senate, Kamala Harris. Right. Who's the domestic policy advisor? Kamala Harris. I can name 10 things that she does other than that, but I don't want to make it about that. My point is that there's lots of reasons to criticize Kamala Harris, but to frame her as unqualified.
Okay.
Again,
that's a fair point. She's not unqualified.
She's qualified. Okay. You just might think she's a.
What is happening? Lance says Mark is frantically defending Kamala. It's weird. It's kind of weird that he's so passionate about this. It's just strange. I'm just like, dude, I don't know.
Going to make the wrong choices. My next point that she's not black. The next point that she's not.
Guys, I need to. Now, Mark, I'll jump in. We run out of time. Candace has to go.
Is the biggest point.
Okay, go on, make your big point quickly.
Jesus, wow. I don't know what's going on. But he's very passionate here. Really wants to get into. He's like, let me talk about her blackness. Let me talk about her blackness. Let me talk about do you work for the campaign? Because I don't even see the people who are working for the campaign capping for her the way that you're doing right now in this interview. I don't know. I don't know what's going on, Mark. I don't know what's going on with all of that.
Let's talk about her blackness, please. Talk about the black experience.
Real quick. Two quick points.
Quick, Mark, quick, because Candace has to go.
The blackness point is what's crazy here to me, right? First of all, the idea that she puts on, they're not personalities, they're codes, and black people code switch from place to place. Wait till you hear me talk to my accountant later. Wait till you hear me.
Pause. I'm sorry, Mark. Black people don't switch to a code when we're talking to Latino people. We don't. That's called pandering. When I talk to, look, I know people that are Jamaican. When I speak to people that are Jamaican, I'm not like, what's up, ma? I don't do that. What are you talking about? You're talking about the difference between like a professional environment, like a work environment, when you're hanging out with your friends. I think that's understandable. Yes. However, I'm not switching accents when I'm going to talk to a group of people that are Latino, when I'm going to talk to people that are Jamaican, I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. It's what it is. She's pandering. Oh my God.
We talk to my agent later, like, yo, why'd you put me on Pierce? Just kidding. Wait till I talk to the people at the local soul food spot. They all gonna be different. Wait till I say peace to the gods and earths in New York. It's gonna be a different conversation. Black people talk differently. When someone says that's my aunt, they're not lying because they don't have shared blood. Black people call people auntie. That's fictive kinship. That is blackness. Going to Howard is
Jesus Christ. Yes, it just
it's a black experience. Pledging AKA is a black experience. And lastly, Jamar, for somebody who is a 5%.
Did you hear what he just said? Pledging AKA is a black experience. You see what he's limited into? It's limited to HBCU and you were in a black sorority. I just told you guys multiple. You don't have to be black to be in a black sorority. You don't have to be black to be in a black fraternity. So I know a number of people that have been in those sororities and fraternities that are not Black. I know people that have gone to HBCUs that are not Black. So do you see what he's limiting it to? That's what I was trying to tell you. Let me tell you something. There are a number of people that will attend a HBCU because they don't have a Black experience and they want to try to get that Black experience. Kamala Harris, coming from Montreal, haven't lived in Montreal, haven't lived in Northern California at that point in time. You know, it seemed like I said before, I've seen this happen before, where people are like a person of color or even white students that go to HBCUs, they want to learn about the Black experience. So they'll attend a HBCU to learn about it. And not for everyone, but for some, that is the case. So it just,
Center who believes that, and I respect your belief, but to believe that the Black man is the Asiatic Black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, the father of the civilization, the God of the universe, who came from North America by himself from Saudi Arabia. You believe that person is Black, but somebody who went to Howard ain't? Come on, bro.
Okay, I'm going to leave the final word.
So once again, Marc Lamont Hill is defining Blackness as attending an HBCU. Just because you attended an HBCU doesn't mean that you're a Black American. And I think people have explained this to Marc Lamont Hill before. I don't know why he pretends that this is not an issue. I don't know why he continues to leave this out of the conversation. But the reality is, Black American is a specific ethnic group. She is not of that group. It doesn't matter what school you went to. It doesn't matter what sorority or fraternity that you were a part of. That's simple.
Final word to Candace before we have to end. Candace, what's going to happen on November the 5th?
Well, since
under 3
code
weeks
switching
away.
is normal, since code switching is normal in the Black community, Piers, I'm going to speak to you like this because this would be totally normal if I put on a UK accent. And it's been
Boy, I know where
lovely
you
to
get that
be
from,
here.
because you're married to a
Thank you
Brit.
so much for thank you so much for having me, and I can't wait to run for president and just put on a different accent every time I speak to someone else.
That's a perfect way to end it. Lord Jamar?
I'm sorry. It was hilarious. I hope you guys, if you get the opportunity to watch the entire discussion, because the first part of this discussion was about Diddy. And I think you guys have told me you've had enough of Diddy, at least for now. But that was the first part of the discussion. But yeah, it was really funny. And to that point, I think Candace was right about that. Am I supposed to change my accent because I'm talking to someone that's British right now? I'm supposed to change my accent now? Get out of here, man. Get out of here. Okay. Smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so, and then let's go ahead and go to the comments. Adonia said Candace nailed it. Right. And don't get me wrong, we all know there's a thing such as code switching, but Black people are not code switching when we go talk to the Latino community, etc. That was ridiculous. Let's go to some of the comments here. But the way that, her name says Marc Lamont Hill's blood pressure was up the whole episode. Yeah, it was weird. I'm like, why are you so destined to defend her in this way? It was kind of weird, man. Sugar Mars, that damn man apologized like a sucker. Yeah, so apparently Lord Jamal did apologize after that. Anton, Sabby Sabs, are you going to visit Marc Lamont Hill's show, Night School? I have not been invited to his show, Night School. You will have to ask Marc Lamont Hill about that. Thank you, Snatch Adams. They want us to put a bougie fall Black 304 into the White House. Would we put a childless pimp into that position? I think not. And also, some of us Black men, genocide is a hard line too. No thanks. That's a good point. Thank you for saying that, Snatch Adams. Right. Gotchko, Mark was getting cut off and he said he didn't vote for Obama. Right. He didn't. He was voting green for years. So I don't understand why he feels so destined to defend Kamala. It's kind of weird. Thank you, Mike G. Always yelling for what they're being paid to say. We don't know that. I can't confirm that. I have no evidence that he's paid to say that. Thank you, Hood Winkies. Lambda, Lambda, Lambda is a Black fraternity and they let white nerds in. I just thought about the movie Revenge of the Nerds. You guys remember Revenge of the Nerds? Thank you, Heidi. I can't stop laughing. These guests are funny. I don't know. Thank you, none of your business. Hill is an undercover Democrat. I don't think so. Like I said, like he's voted green. Thank you, Derek Fawkes. Keep up the amazing work. Thank you. Thank you, MySpun. People fail to realize integration works both ways. HBCUs have an affirmative action to admit non-Black students. Thank you for saying that, Ms. Bun. Thank you. Thank you, 100 Block Roke. Sabby, he is tap dancing for the rent money. Thank you, Bronny. Dark Indian is not Black. Kamala Harris is a fraud. She will say whatever she has to in order to get someone's vote. There is nothing authentic about KJ. P.S. Mark is a sellout to the DNC establishment. Mark been hurting my feelings, man. Mark made me sad. I'm serious. He made me sad. I thought he was really like, you know, down for like fighting back against people, like fight power. Thank you, Courtney Smith. I wonder what Harris Walt's campaign is blackmailing Lamont with. I don't think that's a case. Thank you, Ken Rogers. I like your channel. Marc Lamont Hill is sassy. That's the male Democrats. You should see Kamala's new "Don't Get Popped" ad. Can we show it? We'll show it. Yeah, I have it here. I didn't know if you guys wanted to see it or not, but I'll show it to you. Here we go. And then we'll go to the ballot measures. The ballot measures are really short today. Hey, there's me. Okay, here we go. Let's go to the ad that everybody's talking about. It's very short, so it's kind of hard to do a story about it, but here you go. Not something I think that is great for Black men again, but here we are.
Hello, ladies. I'm Trey. It's good to be here.
What do you do and how much do you make?
I work in finance, making six figures.
How tall are you?
6'5".
Do you have a plan to vote in November?
Nah, not my thing. Hello, ladies. I'm Trey. It's good to be here.
What do you do and how much do you make?
I work in finance, making six figures.
How tall are you?
6'5".
Do you have a plan to vote in November?
Nah, not my thing.
So Harris Waltz paid for by Harris for president. Yeah, after the comments that Barack Obama had about Black men and knowing that she is trying to recruit more Black men to support her, probably not the best ad. Probably not the best ad. I don't know. I don't know who these Democrat strategists are, but probably not the best idea, you know, singling out a Black man there like that. And it's probably not good. I glanced at the comments for 1 second and you guys are like, what the hell? Okay, guys, we're moving on to the ballot measures. I want to start with the state of Connecticut, which has 1, and Georgia only has 4, I believe. So we'll knock those 2 out today. When I come back Tuesday night, we'll move on to, I think it's Illinois is the next state. So we are moving through them fairly quickly. Connecticut and Georgia, Eric, we can put these 2 together as one clips because they're short. So ballot measures. Again, I told you, if you live in a state that's a ballot initiative state, don't sit on the couch. Even if you don't want to vote for president, you should still go out and vote for the ballot initiatives. And we have now made it to Connecticut, ladies and gentlemen. Connecticut is a little bit different. It does not allow its voters the option to place initiatives on the ballot, be they pass their own laws or ratify their own amendments into the Connecticut Constitution. Now, the only way that you can pass initiatives in Connecticut is through the legislature. They can pass independent of voter involvement and place initiatives on the ballot using a legislatively referred constitutional amendment for voters to ratify, amending the legislative initiatives within the Connecticut Constitution. You guys have one. It's called the Connecticut No Excuse Absentee Voting Amendment. A yes vote supports authorizing the Connecticut State Legislature to provide by law for no excuse absentee voting, thereby allowing any voter to request a mail-in ballot. So this is different, guys. Check this out. Currently, Connecticut voters can request an absentee ballot if they can't make it to the polls on election day for one of the following reasons: active military service, absence from town or residence during voting hours, illness or physical disability, religious beliefs precluding secular activity on election day, or performance of duties as an election official at different polling place during voting hours. So that's where it stands right now for an absentee ballot. It says it must be returned either in person by the close of business the day before the election or by mail. If returned by mail, the ballot must be received by the close of the polls on election day. So what they're trying to do now is they're trying to make it so that you have a no excuse absentee voting, thereby allowing any voter to request a mail-in ballot. So now it doesn't matter, right? Like now you don't need all of those different options in order to request that. So pay attention to this, because this is happening in Connecticut. And sometimes I feel like Connecticut gets slept on, you know, kind of like New Jersey. Like Connecticut gets slept on because it's the state that's like, you know, in between New York and Massachusetts. And people are just like, this is the state that I go through to get to New York or to get to Massachusetts. But I wonder how this could affect neighboring states if this passes. So pay attention to that. This is supported by Democrats and Republicans, so it has bipartisan support. Is also supported by the ACLU of Connecticut. And one of the arguments is it would be the next step in the process in allowing all voters in the state of Connecticut to cast a vote via absentee ballot, regardless of the reason. This is opposed by State Senator Robert C. Sampton, who's Republican. And he said, we have to be able to trust these votes without question. I have some concerns about trying to move our voting process away from the way it's been traditionally done, where people vote on the specific day in person. So that's pretty interesting. There's no money spent to support or oppose it. And there's a note here from Roger, who talks about like the mail-in voting was very convenient, you know, obviously during the pandemic. Also, if you can't get election day off, and not everybody does, there's that option. But the other thing too is that there is a risk. I mean, let's be honest, there's a risk that comes along with that. And, you know, it may not arrive on time, or, you know, so those types of things. So that's Connecticut. And now we move to Georgia. Georgia's a little bit different as well, because in Georgia, voters do not have the right to place their own initiatives on the ballot to pass and repeal state laws or amend the Constitution. The only way they can do it in Georgia is that they have the right to ratify into the Georgia Constitution what the legislator puts before them. So the legislator puts these referred constitutional amendments before the voters, and this is what you can vote on. And the first one is Georgia creation of tax court amendment. Tax court. A yes vote supports creating the Georgia tax court to have concurrent jurisdiction with superior courts. Oh, sookie now. All right. So let's see this. It says, does Georgia have a tax court? Currently, Georgia has a tax tribunal, which was created in 2013 that has jurisdiction to review cases concerning tax matters involving the Georgia Department of Revenue. So the tax tribunal is not a part of the state judicial system, but rather is a part of the executive branch within the Office of Administrative Hearings. So that's interesting. Who supports this? The Republican Party. You can see Brian Strickland, Shaw Blockman, all Republican here. I don't see the bipartisan support. There is no money spent to support or oppose this. And a quick note here from Roger, who helps me with these. What is the purpose of this new court? The legislature has not and failed to explain why another court needs to be created. If you can't explain why, then I would vote no. It just seems like a waste of time. Yeah. And I got to say, I agree with Roger on that one. Like, if they don't explain to you why they're doing this, why do you need to support it? It's just, I don't know. And it just feels like, I feel like taxpayers will end up paying for this in some way, shape, or another. Isn't that weird? Like tax court, but you might pay for it. Crazy stuff. Let's get to Georgia local option homestead property tax exemption amendment. A yes vote supports providing a local option homestead property tax exemption and allowing a county, municipality, or school system to opt out of exemption. Now, what exactly would it do? It says the homestead exemption could be limited to any political subdivisions that do not already have an existing homestead exemption. Under the amendment, counties, consolidated governments, municipalities, or local school systems could choose to opt out of the homestead option. The state legislator would need to provide through state law for an opting out process. What's available right now with the homestead option in Georgia? The following conditions must be met to qualify for a homestead exemption. Ownership of the property must be established as of January 1st. The property must be designated as the individual's legal residence for all purposes. The individual must physically occupy the home. I think that's important. The individual cannot be currently claiming a homestead exemption for another property, rather within Georgia or any other state. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And it says that Georgia offers various state property tax exemptions. So just keep that in mind. Who supports this? Bipartisan support, sort of. There's one Democrat that supports it. The rest are Republicans. And there is no opposition to this. No money spent to support or oppose. Quick note here from Roger. I like that the last bullet point they placed above where it says that you can only get this exemption if you only own one home, physically residing at that home, and cannot currently claim exemption for another property in Georgia or any other state. It's like a Republican conservative tax the rich policy by closing a loophole that they can't take advantage of. Yeah, I think this is a good one. I really do. You know, like that's why I like when they said like you have to be in the home. All right, that sounds like a good one. I'd vote yes for that one, guys, if you're in Georgia. Georgia personal property tax exemption increase measure. A yes vote supports increasing the personal property tax exemption from $7,500 to $20,000. Damn. What would the measure do? The measure would increase the personal property tax exemption from $7,500 to $20,000. This exemption excludes all property owned by a taxpayer within a county, with the exception of motor vehicles, trailers, and mobile homes, with a fair market value of $20,000 or below from taxation. Personal property includes furniture, fixtures, machinery, equipment, inventory, and other property used in a business, as well as aircraft and boats owned by an individual or a corporation. Now, how has Georgia voted on property tax exemption measures in the past? Well, in 2002, Georgia voters approved Referendum E, which increased the personal property tax exemption from $500 to $7,500. From 2000 to 2022, 22 property tax exemption measures appeared on the statewide ballot, of which 19 were approved and 3 were defeated. This is Republican Party is supporting this one, folks. No bipartisanship on this one. There's no opposition, and there is no money spent to support or oppose it. Quick note here from Roger. So as you see, this is a legislative referred state statute, meaning a law that they sent to Georgians for their signature. A law that they sent to Georgians for their signature exemplified in their vote rather than a law sent of their governor for his signature. This is meant to complement the legislative referred constitutional amendment that was listed right before this initiative. So that makes sense. And I think that is all, folks. So that is Georgia and Connecticut. I believe Tuesday we will dive into Illinois. I believe is next. Is either Illinois or Maryland. I have to double check my list there. But I'm going to go through these comments, and that's it for me tonight, guys. Let's go to these guys. Thank you, Sparky. Growing up in Atlanta in the 70s, I knew many whites who went to HBCUs. Some went because they wanted to go to school with their high school friends, lived nearby, needed a specific class, or play sports. There you go. Thank you. I know myself. The DNC will push a guy named A Lick back out of California. What? A gov named A Lick back out of California. Okay. I don't know what that's about. Thank you, Sparky. Or to go to medical school at Morehouse. Yeah, I see. I think a lot of people don't realize this. Like when I hear people say, oh, well, an HBCU is racist because only black people can go there. First of all, people don't know the rules or the law. And second of all, people don't realize that it's not exclusive to black Americans. Thank you, 100 Black Roke. My opinion is when in a position as Marc, my opinion is Lamont, Jay-Z, etc., even accepted other folks in high positions, you do what it takes to keep you lifted in the oligarchy and rich set. Interesting point there. And thank you, Bronny. YouTube is not letting us type out KH's first name in the super chats. Google/YouTube have changed their settings to get KH elected, which is telling. You can't type out her name in the super chat? Interesting. I have to check that. Thank you, Ambi Guy. Tacos for life. Oh, I forgot to change my sign. Yeah, that was for Friday. I was supposed to put a different thing up there today and I forgot. Sorry about that. But yeah, it was something going. I was talking about tacos Friday, but either way, I was supposed to change it. But the point that I was trying to make is that you can do anything with a taco. I mean, anything. You can put anything in between those shells and it'll probably taste pretty good, you know? And I said, like, if there was one thing, if I had to eat one food for the rest of my life every day, like what would it be? Tacos. Because I can put whatever I want in those shells, whether it's like chicken, carnitas, you know, like shrimp, fish. So we were going down the list of all the different type of tacos you can make. That's what that was all about. But I forgot to change it. Balls. Okay. That's interesting. So you can put it here. Black Star Jesus said, Kamala Harris, you better thank a union member. Yeah, I guess you can put it that way, but it's not letting him put it in as a super chat. That was interesting. Clarence says, Sabby, it was a play on words for a pimp named Slipback back on Boondocks with Gavin Newsom. That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, man, the Boondocks was awesome. And thank you, Buster Peak, for the super chat. Mark Hill is a reason the Greens don't grow power. I wouldn't say he's the only reason, you know. I think the Greens, like, there's some things that they got to work on. I've talked about it with Greens on the show before. But there are some things that I think that they have fixed. Is there still room for improvement? Absolutely. But there are some things that they have fixed this time around. I will say that. Yeah. All right. That is it for me, guys. I hope you have like a great Sunday evening. I am going to finish watching Lord of the Rings, Return of the King for the 100th time. That's what I'm going to do because I never get tired of those movies. And I hope you don't either. And it's not just people walking. I tried to get other people to watch Lord of the Rings and they told me they don't want to watch people walk for 3 hours. But it's really more than that. There's fighting and everything. Check it out. All right, guys. I'm out of here. Have a good night. Ba, 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 ba. Oh, you got it. Ambi Guy. Kamala. Okay, I guess it's working for you. Okay. I guess it's just not working for him. Yes, the elves. Oh, one more thing before I go. Someone was asking me, they're like, if you were in Lord of the Rings, I wouldn't want to be a character on Lord of the Rings. Like, I wouldn't want to be one of the main characters like in the story. But if you could live anywhere in Lord of the Rings, where would you live? And I said, duh, the Shire. Why would I like to live in the Shire? Because they dance, they sing, they're happy, they throw parties, and they eat food, like real food, yummy food. They get to have a good time. So I would pick the Shire. It definitely wouldn't be Mordor. Of course. It won't be Mordor. I don't know. I'm not even feeling like Rivendell either with the elves because Rivendell to me just seems kind of bougie. Like, I don't think I would be able to like dance and like everything that you can do in the Shire, how they dance around and stuff like that. Like, I don't think I could do that in Rivendell. They'd probably look at me kind of weird. I don't know. But I like the elves' power, but I do feel like the elves just come across kind of bougie. That's my take on that. So, Cloudness likes Lord of the Rings too. All right, check it out. Yeah. Oh, someone said more door all day. Okay. Yeah, you can have that. The Shire, man. Yeah. The fun place. Deb said elves eat magical food. That's true. That is true. But the elves, and this was the one thing I didn't understand, and I keep asking this, but it's like this whole thing about like when their time is up and they have to leave, and they're like, we have to go towards what, Valinor or whatever. It's the elves' time here is up, and now we have to go somewhere else. I'm just like, okay, but then like, why is it Legolas gets to stay behind and help fight like for the ring? Like, there's some things they just don't explain, and maybe you guys can tell me, but there's some things that just like aren't explained. But that whole idea about like that they have to leave, they have to keep moving around, I don't like that. So there's that too. And then it's like, you know, they're not mortal, so they're like, oh, you know, we have eternal life, but they kind of don't, because someone can still kill you. So there's that too. I don't know. We can talk about this another day. Have a good night. I'd say give it a try, 100 bloke. Peanut butter and jelly tacos, give it a try. There's peanut butter and jelly beer. So give it a try. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.